Twice after 3,000, Selfmade jumps in. Selfmade gets it! And Mad Lions have bitten back.
Hello, European Masters enthusiasts. I am Thai Celtic Tiger Brennan, and welcome to the Tiebreakers. Joining me on the desk is Christy Ender Frierson.
Nailed it.
Yes. And Ushid BP Malloy. How are you guys doing?
Feeling pretty good.
Hyped for some games today?
I got a new haircut, and feeling great, feeling fresh.
Nice. I'm digging it.
But before we get into
Copy
hype for
paste.
today's games, I think you missed the mark.
I know.
But
You gotta get the poof.
before we get into today's games, though, let's have a quick look at yesterday's, because we also had some hype matchups there. So let's have a quick look over those and the group standings as they came out from that. Specifically, you could look over to that Group C where there was a big upset.
Yeah, I mean, you see this result, and it's very unexpected. Rogue coming in third. Everyone pegged this team as a favorite to win the tournament, so of course you expect them to get first or at the very least make it through. But after a very big upset from Misfits yesterday, they're out.
Yeah, and actually, not only are they out, but I'm looking at Group B, and I'm seeing the Mad Lions continue their resurgence, continue to go undefeated since the day one of play-ins, and they're looking good.
Yeah, the 15-minute game will make it look pretty good.
That'll cement it, and certainly I think also the Splice Vipers are looking rather strong previous to this tournament, and now maybe some questions being drawn from some of those games. But let's have a look at who they're going to face up against in those knockout stages.
Yeah, I think as well, the one that kind of draws my eye straight away is the two Spanish teams, sadly, unfortunately, the number 1 and number 2 going up against each other. But this will be a fantastic test for both these sides. Like you said, Splice Vipers not looking the coolest, not looking the greatest in terms of the expectations coming in. But the Mad Lions on a resurgence, it's going to be a test of from the region.
Yeah, and of course we only have one more spot left for grabs. The 3 teams we're seeing today are playing for that A2 spot, which will put them up against Fnatic Rising, which looked very strong during the group stages.
The only other ones to touch on, of course, are the big upsetting team Misfits going up against BIG, who I think it's fair to say we haven't seen much from yet in terms of real heavy skill level. But then you have SK Prime versus LDLC, two relatively early game teams.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think both sides, on both ends of the bracket, we could actually potentially be with a all-French or all-German final as well if results go their way.
But yes, the winner of today's tiebreaker will be going up against a very strong Fnatic Rising from the UK. So let's have a quick look then towards that Group A where we will be seeing the tiebreaker. You see Future Perfect, Random 5, Ventus Esports. So just a quick recap for how this went so people know who beat who and how we've ended up here. Big beat them all. Nicely done for the DACH region once again.
Done. Trino.
Future Perfect, they managed to beat Random 5. Random 5 beat Ventus, and Ventus beat Future Perfect, and in a lot of dominating performances.
Rock, paper, scissors. That's all it was for this one here, and it's going to be interesting as well. Like you said, they all have one win. They all looked, dominating in their wins, and then in their losses looked incredibly shaky. And I don't think anyone really put up a bad performance against Big either. But Big are such a strong team; it was, hard for them to really scratch a win from that.
Yeah, I think my only real call out for these 3 teams is that in Ventus's loss, they actually had to sub out their star AD carry Chrisland. So that's something that is weighing on my mind coming into this. Had they been able to keep him in the roster, it may have been them just getting into second place if they had that talent.
I think that's really fair because we actually talked specifically about Ventus, how a lot of their win condition was tied towards Chrisland getting ahead. Also, some of these mage picks that we've had teased to us by some of the local scene casters and even just the players themselves that we've yet to see, because of course Chrisland has managed to pick up that Ezreal a few times already and done quite well there, and then as we said was subbed out up against Random 5. So very interested to see how Ventus do going forward. But one of the other teams to talk about as well, Future Perfect, are a particularly aggressive team when they seem to be coming out ahead.
Yeah, I actually quite like how Future Perfect play their games. It's kind of, we talked about it a little bit after the broadcast. They win fast or they lose fast. They're kind of, jumping in, trying to get their lanes. They're being as proactive as they can. It's just the execution that seems to be lacking every so now and again. But I think they, in my books, are slight favorites coming into this tiebreaker.
Let's have a quick look at the stats that back up these teams as well. Look at some of those goal differences. We just mentioned that we saw WLG coming in as something of an aggressive team, but they've actually had relatively negative goal differences at 15.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing you have to point out is because they each have 2 losses, because it has been so close between them, that you expect to have the negative goal difference of 15. But keep in mind, Ventus have been able to keep it close, much closer than these other 2 teams. So for me, at least, they're sort of the favorite coming into the matches today.
Yeah, and just to kind of back up your point about, WLG being that kind of aggressive team, they have spent nearly 40% of their time with a major lead. It's just kind of slipped out of their fingers every so now and again, and it's kind of, they have the tools, they have the ability, they just need to be a little bit more consistent.
And you can see even in a lot of those losses, they are losing that first tower. Some of them, they're losing that first blood as well. So being pressured is something that a lot of these teams will be worried about. Specifically looking at some of those low numbers on Random 5, that's where my worries will be drawn. The Balkans consistently like to be a big team fighting style, and Random 5 have tried to lean towards that, but it seemed to really struggle in the laning phase.
Yeah, I think that in their 2 losses, they got beaten hard early on. In their 1 win, though, they were able to sort of run away with the game, and I think a lot of that came down to the jungle position. I think Spooky seemed to be a very hit-or-miss type of player, so again, we only got to see a couple games from them, and they can upset, but the expectation is that the early game must be good for them to get a win.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think, with a tiebreaker like this, and it is kind of, you play 2 games, you have to do it now. And I think all these teams are very much capable of winning these tiebreakers, getting into that last final seed to go to the top 8, but it's all about who can consistently do it today.
Now, okay, guys, we talked a lot about how the tiebreaker looks, but let's bring it back for a bit to what the European Masters is really about. And a lot of these regional representations coming in very strong, and obviously the one that immediately jumps out you is that Year of the Doc region right up at the top there at 11-1.
Yeah, 1 loss to Red Star in the play-in stage, and that is it. They are, out of 12 games, 11 wins. It has been, honestly, it was just dominating from the side of the DOC region. They've come in with pretty tempered expectations. No one was really saying that, the DOC region was going to be a huge heavy hitter. It was more talking about Poland and France, and now all of a sudden we're looking going, they are very, very likely the favorites going into the last knockouts.
Yeah, they're looking fantastic, but also them, along with Spain and France, sitting at the top records-wise, each have 2 seeds going into the knockouts as well, which I think is just incredible.
I think the big thing that's really important to me is if you look at Spain, in every single European Masters, they've come in and consistently looked strong. In fact, if you want to count Origin as a Spanish team, because technically they came in through the Challenger in that first one, no one but a Spanish team has won the European Masters yet. So still looking quite scary. You'll now see both Spanish teams facing off in the knockouts tomorrow, so that'll be very interesting to see as well in terms of power level. But I think the big one for me is the DOC region flipping around there, improving from their previously. We'll start off with a terrible European Masters performance, then Euronics did well, and now the DOC region as a whole looking strong. It's really cool to see them improve over the course of this.
Yeah, they've had the ability to turn things around, but the other regions that we're actually seeing play today that need to turn around are going to be the Nordics and Greece. Of course, Ventus and Future Perfect only have 1 win. The wins for these regions only come from those 2 teams, so a lot of that regional pride is resting solely on their shoulders.
Yeah, and it's 2 of the major regions that had teams in play-ins as well that didn't do so well. Both the Balkans and the Nordics that really probably want to prove themselves coming into this tiebreaker. We've said that'll be something of an uphill battle for Random 5, but interestingly, the tournament as a whole as well, if we want to take it back to that. We have seen really interesting kind of a meta form here. We've seen a lot of very aggressive comps and a lot of 1-3-1s as well, Ender.
Yeah, I think that for me, the defining thing has come from pick and ban phase, because flex picks are the name of the game. We see so many bans, especially for solo lane champions, like the Akali, the Aurelia, the Ryze. We're just getting so many of those thrown around here that has been just the staple in the tournament. And it's actually allowed really strong jungle picks to remain as available in the draft, which leads to pretty explosive early games.
I think as well, you can look at it from a point of if you have a style, for example, Misfits Premier have that 1-3-1 style, play it. Play it and play it well, because you know you can win off of it. Don't try and go what quote is quote-unquote meta or what is quote-unquote strong. Do what you feel is comfortable, because that will give you the results.
Okay, now we've seen some aggressive teams that we have talked about in this tiebreaker stage, specifically Future Perfect as well, but let's have a look at today's games and the order in which we will be seeing these 3 teams. So first off, we'll have Future Perfect facing off against Random 5, then Ventus against Random 5, and finished by Future Perfect coming up against Ventus. So a few of these games are rather interesting. We know where the victors were previously. Specifically, again, that second match where Ventus did end up going down to Random 5. but it was with that sub-AD carry. How do you think that might change things if they're able to bring Chrisland back in today?
Well, I think Chrisland coming in will just make it so much more focused around this bottom lane, and that's where Ventus really have been able to find their success. On the other side of things as well, I think Vendettas is a strong player for Random 5, so that match is all about the battle of ADCs.
I think that's very fair. Is there any other matchups that stand out to you, BP, specifically things you might expect to change from their previous group matches?
I actually see that Future Perfect kind of like maybe just shore up their, kind of like their late game a little bit. They are a very early game team. Their average game time is only 27 minutes and 45 seconds. So it's a very quick pace, kind of like we go or we die, and that's the way we go. I want to see them kind of like slow it down a little bit. They have got the potential to kind of go for it, but I want to see them kind of really look to see the smaller plays rather than the one big flashy one.
I mean, we did see them make some pretty interesting plays up against Ventus, where they did
interesting
send some.
Is definitely the word.
They went very far forward in places you may not expect teams to. You would hope teams wouldn't, in fact, but certainly we will see if those kind of weaknesses are shored up going forward. First game of the day, though. Future Perfect up against Random 5. And both these teams really want to come out. It is Future Perfect now who we want to see maybe a Panathinaikos-like performance from that summer split. That big, aggressive game coming out. Can they match that and make their way out of the group?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible here, and you have to remember when these teams faced each other earlier in the group stages. Future Perfect was able to pick up that win. I think a lot of it for me comes down to Behave in the jungle, and the way that he can set his team up for success in the early game is what really gives them a lot of their shots to pull off wins.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that Behave, needs to be able to have the platform to do what he needs to do. We've seen Delito go a little, we'll call it ham, and, not really working out for his team, unfortunately. But we have seen him not really work out in that top side where he's just bleeding advantages to the other team. And that's where I feel like, Future Perfect, if they can just, bring that back a little bit, tell Delito to calm it down a little bit, get Behave going like you said, that's where I see them taking the game.
Okay, so you're talking about a lot of these individual players. Let's look at the rosters as a whole here for both sides. I think you have Future Perfect here. You mentioned Delito, you mentioned Behave. Look down towards that bot lane as well, because you said, yes, Random 5 of a strong bot lane. Do you think Bananito and Labrov need to step up?
I actually think they're actually doing pretty damn well. They actually both have a near 80% kill participation. They are very active in their team fights like we talked about. I think Labrov just, again, it's kind of those small little things, like just knowing when to go in versus when not to. Seen it a couple of times where he kind of goes in and it's just like, oh, no one has followed me up. I'm going to actually just die here because there's nothing else I can do.
Yeah, and I think what we typically see from this bottom lane is it's less about the playmaking. It's usually protective supports from Labrov and scaling ADCs for Bananito. So they have been doing their job. That being said, they're not a focal point and they're not going to be super flashy until we get into the later stages of the game. If they get to 3 items on one of these crit ADCs, that's where someone like Bananito can really pop off.
And the kind of strength I see from Future Perfect as well is that they've only ever played the same champion in any role twice once, and that was the Urgot in topside. They've played completely different champions in every single role, so they have got the flexibility in the champ pool, and that's what we talked about as well. What could be the key factor for any of these teams to make it through?
Okay, funnily enough, if you talk about consistency, go over towards Random 5 now, because we have seen Spooky's Hecarim look relatively like his namesake, spooky.
We've seen one pop-off game and one run it down very quickly because you're a horse game.
Spooky, I mean, for one team. Sometimes it's their own team, you know, of course.
No, and I think the thing for Spooky is, again, difficult with little games on this Hecarim pick is that when he popped off, he really popped off. It seemed very, hit or miss for me on this pick. So for this team, it's very focused on getting him and good early game, because when you're on a champion like the Hecarim that scales so well into the team fights in the mid game, if you can have a successful early game, it becomes much easier to close out for a win.
Yeah, and especially for Random 5 as well. If Spooky's able to get those early advantages, we generally see him go towards that bot side as well, because he wants to try and get Viz, Vendettas, VZZ, whatever you want to call them in this particular tournament. They want to try and get him ahead. We see him getting a lot of pressure, a lot of opportunities to kind of grow his gold and try and push forward with that AD carry.
One of the things that's quite interesting as well, the coach is actually Eden Priatel, which we actually saw on that original ClickTech roster from the Balkans that was the big upset that managed to take out Origin in their group stages. So I want to see that maybe reflect in the draft, going for those big team fights as well that were so big for ClickTech, that we have seen allow Random 5 to secure one victory. And realistically, coming into a tiebreaker, you're going to need that consistency of execution.
Yeah, I think actually looking at some of the picks here for Random 5, they do set themselves up for team fights, but in a unique way. I think mid lane especially, you're either on the Corki, which scales fantastically well in the mid lane, or the Orianna, which you can pair up with the Jarvan or the Hecarim. So the mid lane picks here from Random 5, I think fit very well into that idea of trying to look for the 5v5.
Okay, so we're talking about one team that has big on the 5v5, another team that has maybe a few more options from Future Perfect. So I'm interested to see, do you think it's better to lean into the 1-3-1 for Future Perfect, or should they try match 5v5 to 5v5?
I think they can match 5v5 to 5v5 because, you know, when you're drafting a very strong scaling AD carry for someone like Bananito in the bottom lane, that's going to do you very well. It's also not like Delito plays a lot of strong top lane split pushers. You know, he goes for something like the Urgot, which can be good in lane, but it's not going to go smash towers and, you know, 1v1 you very late into the game. I'd rather see them try to convert that into a strong mid-game team fighting composition.
Yeah, for Random 5, I think it also kind of comes down to just being able to play their own game. You know, if they do, like you say, they go straight for 5v5, being confident in yourself to say, we have got the Kaiser that we've played twice already, potentially, or the Hecarim for Spooky. We have so many things that we know how to team fight around. It's just team fighting with them.
So going in towards that mid game as well, I like, you know, the likes of this Hecarim and stuff we have seen pop up for Spooky, but on the other side, we've seen some aggressive junglers not do so well early on in this tournament in general, not just from these teams, but honestly, Rek'Sai seems to be a champion that a lot of people are struggling to execute on. I know, Ender, you're a big Rek'Sai fan yourself. I'm a Rek'Sai fan, and honestly, this game, some of these games have made me change my mind almost.
Yeah, well, I'm not changing my mind. I think Rek'Sai is busted at the moment. We're seeing maybe a little bit too much
Halo Blades or Conquer.
Rek'Sai.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just about to say.
But ultimately, yeah, what I think has been happening is a lot of these early games have been very, very action-packed. And honestly, Rek'Sai getting into like longer skirmishes sometimes can be a little bit of an issue, especially if you start to fall down and you have to fully commit and then you really look to get punished.
Okay, but you don't think Conqueror might do okay in those longer skirmishes?
No, sorry. What I meant were not
Triggered.
longer skirmishes necessarily, but more of them. You know, when you see Rek'Sai perhaps in the LEC, it's not quite as frequent. But one thing that we have seen, I think, is a lot of junglers just counter-ganking and showing up. So like Rek'Sai overcommitting, then all of a sudden there's a Jarvan or a Skarner there, and you're less happy in that type.
I've also been really enjoying some of these Skarner picks coming out for junglers that have been kind of pressured out by these early aggression. It's pretty simple, right? Fact is, if you're struggling in terms of communication, if you're not getting all those team comms down, you ult someone a Skarner, everyone knows we're jumping that person.
It's a sad time for a jungler when they're like literally their only use is you grab him and that's what you do. And it's but I could no. You grab him and that's all you got to do. And it's like, yes, they build QSSs and it's a huge amount of investment you have from the opposite side. It's, you know, 6,000 plus gold they have to put into that to stop the Skarner from getting them. But like you said, it is a way to win.
Yeah, but interestingly, it's also been a champion that have helped people find form. If we look at the first European Masters, when Origin were actually struggling originally, when Insect started picking the Skarner, they massively improved. Look at this tournament. When Mad Lions were struggling, Blue Resort goes to the Skarner, they start improving. If you found yourself at a tiebreaker, maybe this is the kind of champion you want to fall back on to give you that simplicity in execution.
Yeah, there's always that option for these teams. Ultimately, I think for a team like Future Perfect, that's where we might see more experimentation. You already mentioned it. So many unique picks from this team means that going to this draft, it's a lot harder to read. Whereas for a team like Random 5, you know their tendencies, even just seeing a couple of games, because it's what they practice and it's what they've been trying to repeat performances on.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that much from what you were saying there as well. The unique picks are definitely a huge advantage for the side of Future Perfect. Random will have a set strategy. They've always had a set strategy, and I feel like Future Perfect, in my opinion, should be able to just kind of, you know, break that apart and be able to get what they want without giving away too much either.
Yes, well, Future Perfect are coming in as, I would say, the probable favorites. Random 5 have the ability to surprise. If you look back at the EBL, back at the Balkan League, Aces ROG were the previous representatives from the last EU Masters. Random 5 managed to surprise and beat them. Aces ROG were previously known, double aim specifically, for being a very aggressive jungler. So they are able to deal with aggression with some of these surprise picks. I would like to see more of that from Random 5 going forward into this, because they've already shown they have that potential up against a team I would consider quite strong, Aces ROG previously having done quite well in the European Masters. It's now about, can you execute on this when it really comes down to it? Because best of ones, a lot of people have talked about, are really do or die.
Yeah, I completely agree. But again, like you come into this tournament knowing that that's the way it is. You know, it's not like we randomly just messaged the teams the last night and went, surprise, you only get one game. But like, you know, and you have to prepare for that. There's all different types of competition, and I do feel that Random 5 will be prepared for those best of ones as well as any kind of best of threes.
Okay, so going into this pick ban now, we talked a lot about some of these jungle picks that could come out. We didn't talk about as well some of the things that you might see banned away from either side. We have seen We Love Gaming put under a bit of pressure with maybe some of these bans.
Yeah, just a little bit. I think that a lot of the focus on the mid lane can be taxing on your players' pools as well. I'm actually a little bit surprised even to see the Sylas taken off the board. You know, I think we saw it picked one time just yesterday, and after the nerfs, we know it still can have priority in some of the early game matchups in the mid lane, but it's definitely not the status it once was on 9.6.
I was just about to say, the Lee Sin was something I am expecting to see banned against Behave. Also, something I'm also expecting to see banned against Round of 5 is the Yasuo. We've seen it banned 2 out of 3 games, something that they're generally quite good on, but the Taric is going to be the ban. They don't want Son of Taric.
One of the things I'm very interested by is the fact that Future Perfect seem to be doing what we've seen as a lot of red side bans.
Yeah.
Because you take away that Rise, which has been a really common first pick. You take away that Taric, which a lot of people take away on red side, going, if they lock the Taric, we have to take the Sona, and Sona by herself, we have seen some of these teams show, is not particularly impressive.
Yeah, I don't think they want Sona for Bananito. You know, the scaling pick is the option for them. They want physical damage in the bottom lane, so I think it's perfectly fine to ban away the Taric if you don't want to take it yourself. It's not like you're necessarily giving up a whole lot, because I think there are so many viable, you know, high priority picks that if you leave some out, if you want to swap it up for the Taric, things are going to be open like the Akali to take yourself.
Yeah, and all junglers are available on the board as well, so we still have...
Except Lee Sin.
Except Lee Sin. I'm talking about the big three, the trifecta, the trifecta. So we still have Rek'Sai, we still have Jarvan, and we still have, as I said, the Jarvan being taken away. We still have the Skarner as well. So Random 5, they lose the Akali, but they get their first preference on support and jungle.
But also, you're already seeing from Random 5, the Thresh does tend to lean you towards something a little bit more aggressive. I'm really interested in the response from WLG. Are they going to go for the Zyra Khan?
Yeah, they lock in Zyra Khan. They've already played this actually one time earlier in this tournament, and it was the different look for them, because Zyra Khan can get a little bit more aggressive in the early mid game. You have a lot of tools to work with in terms of setting up ganks for your jungler. The one thing I do think that could come back to bite them a bit is the fact that they didn't pick up a jungler here. So with Jarvan already taken, now we're going to see Rek'Sai ban, maybe a Skarner ban as well, and that could really try to limit Behave's champion pool. But that being said, he has gone for 2 of the sort of like B-tier champions, with like the Hecarim and the Trundle is resting right underneath the Triad that we've seen so strong in the jungle.
Yeah, the Rare ban I actually really like from the side of Round of 5. They know Delito's played it twice already, and they know that he's not the most comfortable at this moment. He's definitely looking like the weakest link in this team, so definitely putting pressure onto him and saying, we're going to first pick our top laner because we know we can go into that.
Yeah, and the big thing as well is, of course, while you generally consider Akali something of a flex pick, you can swap around. We've seen Vaughn consistently take the Akali whenever WLG have gone for it, even historically, so it just makes sense here.
Yeah, so my eyes are now going towards this Hecarim, where it falls into the draft, because with the Kennen ban and Urgot ban, if you take Jace out of the equation as well, that sets up for a pretty free top side. Now, Random 5, they don't want to blind the Hecarim, so they end up banning that themselves, which makes me think they're going to look for either a really safe top lane blind pick here coming out of the draft, or save counter pick for themselves.
That'd be pretty interesting to see. I'm actually waiting to see where they go. Even if they pick up the Jace, maybe a little bit uncomfortable trying to punish the Hecarim earlier on, can still pick up the Jace to flex it here.
Jace is definitely something that is on the cards, but taken away, so I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about it. It's gone.
But we can't talk about it. It was worth taking away.
It was worth
of course.
taking away, yes.
But now we generally see a flex pick here. You could even see something like the Vlad potentially.
Yeah, I think Vladimir could fit in here, honestly, for both sides. Strong AoE teamfight damage would work well with the Jarvan or the Zion Rakan. The one thing you have to consider a little bit over on blue side now is with the Poppy getting locked in, that could be a little bit more difficult of a matchup, I believe, for the Akali. So Future Perfect now, if they have a flex pick that they want to, keep holding on to so they don't have to reveal where they're going, they could go for that. But I actually am really digging the Rumble.
I was just about to say, it's like right now with all the kind of top lane picks taken away, he has to go for something brand new that we haven't seen him play in this tournament. The Rumble is really, really good. It's like anti-Jarvan Cataclysm right now. He goes into the Cataclysm, you drop the Rumble ultimate, he needs to get out.
Also, the fact it does amazingly well to the Poppy. The only other real big counterpick to Poppy you see is Darius, which is obviously much easier to punish.
Ooh, interesting here. If they go for the Kha'Zix,
okay,
they're trying to add a little bit more physical damage to this roster, because like initially when you see that, you think maybe you want to Sejuani or some CC to set up for this Rumble. That's the one thing that I think they're lacking. Outside of Rakan ultimate, it's hard to set up for a really solid equalizer. But one thing they do have is a lot of engage and slows from range with the evolved spikes on the Kha'Zix, as well as that equalizer. They can try to search for fights without fully committing.
the last pick now. What do you think the response is going to be? Something standard?
I was just about to
Okay.
say, I was like, we've seen it before. You talked about it before the game. Orianna just fits so well with this composition. It would be weird, at the very least, to not see him pick that up.
I was going to say the standard thing would be follow up with more team fight, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we were expecting from
Play
Random
to your
5. We talked
strengths.
about the Vlad. Orianna fits in there as well, and you say potentially more experience for LMZS there on that. The only thing that maybe worries me looking at this comp from WLG is your front line is rather squishy.
Yeah, and I'm really liking Random 5's composition the more I think about it. I think you have a ton of synergy between the Poppy and the Jarvan Cataclysm. You have strong team fight. You have answers to avoid, potentially getting picked off. You have very safe picks across the board. So I think that, trying to find assassinations with Kha'Zix and Akali is going to be a little bit more difficult. Future Perfect are really going to have to split up these fights and look for skirmishes if they want to succeed.
I was going to say it's pure, not pure pick, but definitely a lot of pick coming out from a lot of team fight. And Future Perfect, I said it before, they have very fast games. They win very fast. This sounds like a comp that wins or loses very fast.
I think that's what it will be necessary. I was also looking at it and saying Poppy W shuts down so much of what you want to do.
All your
so
jumpy boys are gone.
So if you end up stuck grouping up against Random 5, that could be something that allows Random 5 to stall until they can get a more comfortable team fight for themselves. So, speaking of that, give us some quick predictions, guys. Who do you think has the better comp, and who do you think will come out ahead?
I like the team fight comp from Random 5. I think it's just too good and they're going to win.
Honestly, I got to feel the same. I think Random 5, incredible draft from them, and I feel like they've got the edge.
Okay, well, that's going to be it from us here. We're going to send it up to our casters to take away this very first tiebreaker of the day. Hiprain and Kieran, Scoundrel, take it away.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the knockout stages. Well, not the knockout stages, we're just in tiebreakers. My name is Jake Hiprain Matthews. I'm joined by Ken Scoundrel Low. I almost said your name wrong. How you doing?
Tyke did, so...
It's all right. That's what threw me. I mean, I'm excited to get into this, because obviously the winner of this has to take Fnatic on in the knockout stages.
They do.
But for now, it's more about just focusing on who can actually get out of the group stages.
Forget about Fnatic. It's all about getting the wins now to put yourself into that knockout bracket. Whichever team makes it to the knockout bracket will do their region proud regardless of what happens. Because right now, there are no teams outside of the major regions currently in that knockout bracket. The team that wins this this round robin is the only team from a smaller region that will make it through to that knockout bracket. So you can claim that fame if you make it through.
And I mean, we got very close with Panathinaikos last European Masters as well. They had that almost miracle run, and Future Perfect may be looking to do the Greek region proud
if
here.
Greece gets a top 8 position in the European Masters for a broadcast that isn't actually even broadcast. I mean, the LGL doesn't actually get broadcast. That's insane for their region. Obviously, the Nordics are a bigger region, but they haven't really had the best of times at this European Masters. So yeah, I think there's plenty on the line here. You've got to focus on game to game, and this one definitely looks spicy. I actually think Future Perfect WLG have a composition that can snowball, and if they snowball, it'll be very difficult, I think, for Random 5 to catch up. But I do agree with Ender and Oshin. If Random 5 just play safe, get through the laning phase, they've got a teamfight composition that kind of trumps what Future Perfect have brought to the table.
Okay, so early on into this game, who do we want to be tracking? Where do we think the progress will be getting made here?
Jungle top.
Jungle top.
Jungle top. I mean, you've got a Rumble versus Poppy. That's an awful matchup for Poppy. Awful matchup if the Rumble is played correctly. We know Delito is a great top laner. I think the Kha'Zix and the Rumble duo in that top lane can get a lot of work done. If the Rumble starts to snowball there, that's going to be a real issue for Poppy going forward in this game. I also want to keep my eyes on bot. I actually think the mid lane matchup is going to be fairly non-existent, because obviously Akali's going to struggle to get a lot of damage down onto Orianna in the laning phase. Maybe with a bit of jungle help, it can happen. I think Orianna is one of the weakest mid lane champions once you burn Flash. She's very, very, very gankable. So that could be something they look to do, but I definitely think this Rumble Poppy matchup is going to be one to watch.
And as we do load into our first games here of the tiebreaker series today, got to keep in mind, last time Future Perfect, Future Perfect went toe-to-toe with Random 5. Random 5 did lose that game, so this might get into their head a little bit, knowing that they have already lost to this team in the group stages.
Yeah, Von on the Akali as well is definitely a scary prospect. Behave, who is an incredible solo queue jungler. I think most people will know Behave from playing in high elo solo queue. He's got on a Kha'Zix, which is something very comfortable for him. And actually, we kind of overlooked the Xayah Rakan. Xayah does scale better than Lucian in most cases, and has a very strong laning phase when coupled up with that Rakan. So I think WLG have the stronger laning phase pretty much across the board here. They just need to make sure they utilize any advantages that they gain, and they can then transition to a 1-3-1, or they could just group up around global objectives with that Rumble ultimate.
I mean, look at that bot lane Skinnergy. Both of these.
Skinnergy.
You've got the High Noon bot lane for Random 5. You've got the Cosmic bot lane for We Love Gaming. So we'll be
that's
helping.
what we like to see.
That's what it's all about. That's the moral win.
Exactly, the moral win. All right, we'll see what happens with the pathing. The pathing is going to be interesting. With Behave starting on the bottom side of the map, you would envision that he then goes, either he's going to vertical jungle, which I think would be bad for him given the Rumble Poppy matchup. I think you probably see him start bottom, then head up towards top.
It looks like he's going to go into the red buff, then move towards his Krugs in the positioning. He's moving the wave, so he wants to just get like a nice powerful clear off here. But Spooky goes to the flag and drag over the wall. Might just look to steal away this blue buff really fast.
I actually like this, you know, because if he takes this blue buff and then forces everything into a vertical jungling prospect, and he actually passed over wards. He's passed over no wards that have seen him do this. This is either going to severely limit Behave's experience gain if he sticks on his own side of the jungle, or it's going to force Behave into vertical jungling, where Behave's going to be on the side of the map that I don't think he really wants to be. So I actually quite like this from Spooky, and I think it's going to start to really put pressure on Behave's jungle pathing.
Okay, Spooky hasn't actually been spotted out on that ward. That red ward is obviously for himself, so while he gets this crab, doesn't actually give away any of his positioning. Once again, he might just flag and drag over this wall here, and they're going to have no idea from what Spooky's done. So, like I said, really, really solid stuff for the Random 5 jungler. This Behave has no idea what's going on. He's taking away his chickens. Now he's just going to head into his blue side and realize there's no blue buff left.
3 buff there for Behave, and he didn't get picked up on any wards, just as you said. It's going to be the River Scuttler going down. He might even get a double River Scuttler out of this situation. Now, Behave has got a slight experience advantage here, but Spooky's going straight for the bottom River Scuttler. He has completely outplayed Behave. I like that Behave's responding like this, though. He's managed to keep himself relevant on the top side of the map, and he's going for his the enemies counter-jungling onto the Razor Chickens. And that is going to allow him to stay on the side of the map that I think he wants to be on. Now he can then go towards mid, try and burn Akali's flash, or if the lane error lines up well for him on the top side, he can go and try and gank Poppy.
Behave definitely knows his blue buff's gone there.
Yes.
He saw the Scuttler gone down, he realized what had happened, so he went in, took away the chickens, will jump over just to be certain. But does realize his Gromp's been left up. So at least Behave is now aware of what's going on. They might be able to have a rough idea of where Spooky is on the map from this as well.
That's really interesting. Ping's coming down onto the Krugs for Luvens on the top side of the map now that he's pushed under turret, just because he has to be maybe careful of a tower dive. I don't think it's likely to happen because it's Rumble, but you just need to be aware. They're not quite sure where Behave actually pathed out of those Razor Chickens, because I think that ward went down after he'd already left.
Yeah, I don't believe he was seen here, but we've been tracking the junglers for a little bit in this early game. Wanted to keep our eye on this bot lane as well, as we were talking about how Xayah and Rakan have a fairly strong laning phase, but they are into Illusion Fresh, typically quite an oppressive lane as well. There is a lot of kill threat if a hook lands from Turanaga.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think both of these lanes have high kill pressure that you can see now. Spooky coming down.
Turanaga does have that flay. Moving forward, the knockup comes into the play, and Labrov just jumps away.
That was a nice bait for a Labrov. You jump in with the Rakan, you knock up, make it look like you're committing, then just dive back out for that extended range shield. And yeah, that was just a really easy defense there. That's not what you want to do in this matchup, Delito.
Yeah, didn't take tower that aggro though.
No.
So he's nice and okay for the moment, but does mean Lubins just get a little bit more time to try and catch up on this wave, as the CS deficit is growing here in this top lane. 32 CS to 21, so an 11 CS deficit at the moment at 4 minutes 50 into this game. Does mean there's a 400 gold lead starting to grow in favor of We Love Gaming.
It's really, really bad matchup for the Poppy, though. It really is. You can see Vendettas.
Ooh, they got the hook. They do miss out on the Blade Cooler. VZZ might just turn it around. The Ignite and the Flay comes in. The Lantern's there. And Vendetta with the Ignite should find first blood. He flashes away from the feathers from Bananito.
Didn't quite manage to complete the kill there. Now, that was a little rough. Unfortunately, you saw that was a commit coming out from Labrov and then just wasn't there for Bananito. Spooky tries to get a little bit of damage off in the mid lane, but Von's having none of it. Yeah, and that was unfortunate. That was a really good play from Thresh to put a lot of damage down back onto Labrov. Ignite early to force him back, and then pull Vendettas in on that Lucian.
Abe's actually spotted out Spooky, putting some damage in with that Taste of Fear. Isolated Spooky is supposed to flag and drag away. This means Behave should get this crab in favor.
I agree, and what I like what Behave's done is, given that how he actually struggled with that early 3 buff, he got a lot of counter jungling done on the top side of the map. He then has that equal level advantage, catches out Spooky trying to go for the reset on the Rift Scuttler, and then looks for that 1v1 in just the right position, knowing that coming from that mid lane, he's likely going to look for the respawning Rift Scuttler. And now Behave is going to continue to look to pressure around these chickens. He has to be careful though, because Orianna is coming back to lane.
Yeah, LMZS is there. Behave just jumps straight into the face of Spooky. The smite goes down. I didn't see who secured that, but
I think did the blue smite come down first? No. I think actually Spooky got no. Behave did get that. Spooky smited it early.
early smite. That's unlucky.
I think anyway. I can't quite sure. Whichever with the blue smite was Spooky's.
Well, these leads are growing across the map. Apart from this bot lane, BZZ doing a good job to stay equal with Bananita. That first blood as well onto Turanaga does give him a slight gold lead. They have put it back to equal now because of this, but LMZS on that Orianna, 10 CS down to the Akali. You'd expect to see the Orianna try to bully this Akali out pre-6, but Von, with the fleet footwork, has been able to sustain and stay relatively comfortable in this matchup.
Yeah, it's not like a huge kill pressure lane for Akali, because you know that there's the ability for the shockwave to come out. It's good zoning from the distance, so you're just going to try and chip away where you can. Like this, use that smoke screen to advance your lane up, push that lane in, maybe force Orianna to miss a CS here or there, which is what's been happening. But Orianna is a pretty safe lane unless she's getting ganked. She's got that shield, she has the ability to slow down. The shockwave is a great defensive tool if needed. So really, I think Von's going to eventually have to transition into looking for get kills elsewhere. I imagine with the engage potential post 6 in the bot lane, Akali might look to go down with Behave and maybe find an engage there.
Yeah, might just look for that, but with that shockwave, we'll be able to always have that mixing bowl combination where you throw the Cataclysm down, you get that shockwave off, and the wombo combo is always a very real threat for the likes of Random 5, but you are fighting onto the potential of a Rumble red carpet. Could get kind of rough here for Random 5 if they group up in these later stages, but for now, just trying to play the map as Spooky does once again get spotted out while he's trying to move around the map.
Yeah, Von not going to commit to that. Behave just not in the right position to support him there. If Behave was somewhere close, he might have seen a little engage come through. But right now, Behave just been trying to farm up. He's working towards that warrior build, and you can see the Spooky going for the Cinder Hulk instead. But as it stands, it's been a pretty even early game, and I think that generally favors Random 5 as this game goes on, because they have that really solid, easy to pull off late game team fight composition. We really want to start to see Delito and Von popping off, either that's rotating out of mid lane for Von, looking for ganks on the bot side of the map, or even just Delito winning that matchup. Now, he is winning it by 20 CS right now. It's a bad matchup for Poppy, especially now that the Haunting Guise has been completed. But now we need to start to see this ramp up. We need to start to see kills coming through. We need to start to see towers being focused.
So we will have to be tracking this kind of jungle mid synergy. It's one of those, it's a term that gets thrown around quite a lot, but we do want to be watching that in this game. See if Behave and Von can start to open up some kind of advantage for their team.
See Von just trying to dance around the Orianna ball in that lane. It can be difficult for a ranged matchup, a melee into range matchup there. And you can see Von now looking for it.
Jumped in with that perfect execution. LMZS forces out the shockwave and the barrier, but Von just jumps away to safety. They try to make it happen, force both of the summoner spells of LMZS.
Yeah, and now that does make LMZS more vulnerable in that mid lane for a repeat gank. Wait until that Akali ultimate comes off and Behave might be able to make a return to that mid lane, but you can see Orianna pretty safe with the barrier here. Spooky now waiting on the sidelines. Von's going to have to be careful.
Have to be very careful. Shuriken flip away to safety, but Spooky looking to chase Behave, hanging by. Throws down the charge for the moment, and Behave jumps in 1v2. Delito teleports down, throws out a red carpet, and Spooky gets melted.
So good from Delito.
LMZS now is trying to run away with the speed up, has that blast cone to get over the wall, and will be able to make a grand escape, but Behave looking to cut him off. The command dissonance gives a moment of movement speed, but Behave flashes in forward and takes him down.
Yeah, that was really good from Delito. He knew exactly that Jarvan did not need the red carpet placed on him. He was already dead, so he slows the Orianna escape through the jungle. Behave really good positioning to capitalize on it, and that is why Orianna is so vulnerable. When she loses flash, mobility is limited, that dissonance only, and you've got that very small shield because you don't level it early on. So that is a nice play there. It was a good bait. I'm wondering why Spooky didn't think that Behave was on that side of the jungle, though. You just saw him gank mid, you saw him go back into the river, onto the bottom side, the red side jungle. I'm a little bit confused why they didn't predict that Behave would have been there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of questionable decisions being made, that nerves kind of kicking in for these teams. You've got to remember, they want to get this win. They want to make it out of the group stages. They want to be the only team from a non-major region to advance into the next stage of the European Masters. But now Delito gets knocked up by the Keeper's Verdict. Spooky's coming in with a Cataclysm, but they're stuck inside the oven with the Rumble. The shields are on, and Delito just gets annihilated as Lubins gets that kill.
That was a really nice initial follow-up play from Spooky. Rumble burnt the flash early on in that engage. He hasn't got the teleport. It was a big wave building up. They're going to get some plates from this too, and Spooky kept that Cataclysm. That's the key important part of this. Spooky kept the Cataclysm in that engage, and that was a lovely way to punish the Rumble from burning a lot of his resources, but also his abilities and summoner spells in that previous engage in the mid lane.
I did actually want to make a point, but I believe Behave did level his Q when he evolved. He's got larger claws right now, so I'm fairly certain that means he's leveled his Q.
Yep.
So the ability for him to solo these neutral objectives, like that Mountain Drake, was very easy. It took him 11 minutes to turn his attention towards that, but if Random 5 kind of leave this top lane a little bit too unattended, they can get the push from Delito. Behave can always look to solo out that Rift Herald and look for the gold plates that can kind of swing those gold leads for you.
Yeah, I think also it was just a good response. It's the obvious response when the jungler shows on the top side of the map. It gives you a bit of time. I think you've got equal lane pressure in the bot side. It's not like your bot is getting shoved in completely. So he just found a good opportunity to go for the Mountain Drake. Now, interestingly enough, because you've got mid lane priority and you've got top lane priority right now in terms of the wave shove, I actually think that they could go for the Rift Herald without actually rotating their bot lane. Most teams will rotate a winning bot lane up to top after they've got a couple of plates to go and get another few plates, boost the gold advantage for the team, but also get a dragon immediately into Rift Herald. I don't actually think WLG need to do that because Rumble is still winning this matchup. The Akali is scarier than Orianna in skirmishes right now, and obviously Behave is just popping off in terms of levels and damage.
I mean, Lubins is actually just going 1v1 with Delito here, trying to slow him down with that hammer shot. You can see Spooky trying to make his way forward. That Keeper's Verdict is available, not going to throw it out. Spooky
got so much damage.
Jumped by Behave. He has that adaptive camouflage. The carpet has been laid down here, and Lubins is going to force the flash away to safety as Random 5 almost get turned onto here, but in goes Von actually, tries to get that solo kill thing. Nice off the shockwave, lands into a tower shot, but John just goes in and elites him.
That was big plays from Von, but also really nice counter gank on the top side of the map. You can see these lanes have their priority right now. This is the time where you want to start to pressure out the jungle. You want to start going for that Rift Herald. Behave's not going to let Spooky get away with it.
No, he jumps in and oh my god, Spooky! He just gets cut through like butter.
And now is the time to go straight to Rift Herald. You've got a dead mid laner, you don't have a jungler to deal with, go in, you've got a massive level advantage, your top lane is pushing in. This is a great time to secure this objective, capitalize. You won't get plates from it, but you'll be able to get your first tower almost certainly. And that'll open up the map. You can either then transition into a 1-3-1 or start to work on that bottom side of the map, which speaking of...
Weakness has been used, they've got the charm and the blade cooler's enough to get the kill, but VZZ, he does not care. The culling has come down. 1v2 tries to turn that play around, but a great pick for We Love Gaming.
I thought you were going to finish that sentence.
You looked at me like I had more to say.
No, I was putting my hand out to say, hey, mate, we're going to go in a second. But Benedito, a little bit over-aggressive there, but should be able to get out. What I wanted to say was, you know, you're looking at an LGL team that has got 5 incredible players, right? A lot of these players you will have seen and known from high-elo solo queue or previous European Masters experience. You've got Delito, incredibly experienced top laner. You've got Behave, known to be a really strong jungler. Kha'Zix is a really big comfort pick for him as well. Labrov, loads of experience in the support role. This is not a team that comes from a weaker region, you know, in terms of talent pool as well. They have got a very talented roster. And I think arguably in terms of individual skill, trump the Ventus and the Random 5 roster quite significantly. They just need to find that synergy and that game plan and that macro. And it looks like this game, they're starting to switch it on.
Yeah, definitely doing that. As you can see, the gold lead is growing to just over 2K in favor of We Love Gaming. But like I said, there's always that wombo combo with the Random 5 composition. They've always got that ability to just find a target, find a couple of targets with the Cataclysm and that Shockwave, and give that opening for VZZ on this Lucian to kind of dance around the edge of the fight and rip through people. But the question is will We Love Gaming give them that opening, give them that opportunity? Because so far, they're playing with a lot of respect towards their opponents and going aggressive when they know they can, and punishing Random 5 for overextending in the lanes or catching Spooky in bad rotations.
I think what is really paying off right now is that you've got Behave at 3-0. Oh, that's a big
that's
engage.
the flash. The play comes in. They're trying to get the kill onto Bananito. Doesn't have that blade cooler. Lavrov jumps away, but the teleport is coming through. We got 4v2. They're going to slow Delito down. He throws out the equalizer for the moment, and the hook does land onto him, but he's actually melting through Turanaga. A great keeper's verdict by Lubins, and in comes Von. In comes Lavrov. They're just trying to get the kill onto VZZ. A two-man knockup comes into the hook, but Von continues the chase. Lubins is jumping away, but they might just turn this with the Orianna if they can find that opening. It looks like they're just going to step away. The Rift Herald has been summoned, and Random 5 are going to have to be forced away from their turret.
They've got kill pressure because Behave is so strong right now. They might be able to stop this Rift Herald taking the turret, though, which is a really good defense coming out. It did a lot of work here. They just need to push one more wave in. Remember, there's lots of execute potential coming out because so many low health bars are there for R5. That was a great teleport and a great flash from Delito, but more importantly, the equalizer was incredible. Not only did he continue the Flame Splitter as he get hooked in, so he was dealing damage while being CC'd.
Uh-oh. Shockwave does land. LMZS just gets flashed onto and gets away.
He queued a minion. Oh, no, that would have been a kill for Behave. I don't know if Orianna was just out of range, but he definitely queued a ranged caster minion right there.
He might just be looking for the kill on LMCS. Oh my lord, those Void Spikes almost got the kill.
I mean, Behave right now can pop heads. Like, he is so far ahead in terms of his overall build and the damage output that he's got. It doesn't matter if you've got a great teamfight composition, if your assassins are just going to one-bop your backline. This Orianna and this Lucian, they don't survive very long versus this quite fed Akali and very fed Kha'Zix.
That was through LMZS flashing and burying, and with the airy shield that you get from using your own shield as well. He just cuts through them. He's got that Dust Blade. He's got that Warrior. And let's have a little look at this fight once again.
All right, so this is a great engager to Bananito. I would have liked Lavrov to try and take the hook, but I really don't think it would have mattered overall in terms of the outcome in that situation. Now, you'd think Rumble's absolutely screwed at this point, but the equalizer is so good. It means that Spooky and VZZ can't get into position, and it also means Delito is able to flash over the other side and buy time for the rest of his team coming in from River. And then once the Assassin crew gets here, a brilliant charm allows them to finish off at least one of these kills. Now, unfortunately, they don't want to dive the tower versus some heavy CC, but regardless, that equalizer kept that fight alive.
Spooky keeps just walking into members of We Love Gaming.
I mean, this is good, right? At WLG, if they can push their vision lineup, they can make Spooky have a really tough time generating more gold. Look at the jungle CS difference right now. Now, this would be like a sizable CS difference in lane. In the jungle, it means even more, because you don't get those high CS values in jungle. This is a huge advantage to Behave. He is literally running house on Spooky right now.
Cloud Drake's going to get picked up by Behave as well. With those Moby Boots, with a Cloud Drake, he's going to be very quick around the map. Next Drake spawning up is going to be a second Cloud as well, so they can be doing their Sonic impressions as they run around the map. Does look to me like We Love Gaming. They beat out Random 5 in the group stages. They want to do it again. They're feeling very confident coming into this matchup. Like you said, getting a lot of comfort as well, making them feel even more comfortable in this game. And they're going to take this third turret in the top lane as Von moving the wave up. He's got the help of Lavrov and Bananito with him.
He's got a very quick roster, be able to rotate from the mid lane super easily and take these turrets. As we said, they've transitioned into the 1-3-1. Right now, Akali is stronger than Orianna. She's got kill pressure with that Hextech Gunblade completed on the Orianna. And you can see on the bottom side of the map, it is still Delito.
Adaptive camouflage, Behave, he's looking for it. They throw down the equalizer, Von jumps in! VZZ is just annihilated! And in comes Lubies, he's next up on the menu. Von's found himself a double kill. The box will dissuade any more of a chase as We Love Gaming find two.
And they're going for a 20-minute Baron. This is what a Rumble can do. He's so punishing in the mid-game. If you get ahead, the Equalizer is a perfect form of engage. It slows down, it forces flashes, and that's when the Assassins can strike. You saw that Equalizer come down. It was a perfect opportunity for Akali and Kha'Zix to jump in and finish off those squishy backline members. Like I said, if you've got two Assassins that are this far ahead, LMZ and VZZ are not going to last very long.
Oh, that Baron is not going to last very long here. Lubins actually does get the headbutt into the wall onto Von, but he tries to send him away. The Keeper's Verdict, that might just reset 3 members. The rest of the team are coming in. The Shockwave lands onto no one, and Von gets wall banged again, and the shutdown is picked up by the Orianna.
That was a brilliant keeper's verdict. That was absolutely top tier from Lubins. It basically stalled the game out for R5, which is what they needed, and helped them get a shutdown onto the Akali. Single-handedly has kept his game in the balance for R5, because if that Baron had gone down and they were allowed to transition into a 1-3-1, I fear for the rest of the game for R5. I really think they would have just been absolutely swept away.
I mean, R5 wouldn't have had the wave clear at 20 minutes to deal with Baron minions. They just would have lost so many objectives. They would have lost their inhibitors. This gold lead would have swung even further, but with that stop, still doesn't pull them back out of it. They're still very much in a dangerous position as We Love Gaming have got themselves a 4K gold lead over Random 5. These items are being hit as you've got the Hextech Gunblade, you've got the Morella Nomicon finished up onto Von, the Infinity Edge and a Zeal almost into that rapid fire cannon for Bananito. LMZS does have the Luden's Echo and that Oblivion Orb, so will start to really hurt people with that rank 2 Shockwave.
I think so, and I think realistically there is a timer, you know, for WLG. Well, kind of, right? WLG can just split push this game, right? Yeah. They can just put Akali in a side lane and Rumble in a side lane and say, well, you don't actually match us. There really isn't a huge amount. I mean, there's a little bit of magic resistance built up for Lubins. He's got a Null Magic Mantle and the Cloak as well as the Mercury Treads. But aside from that, you're going up against the Leandri's Torment. That will still shred through you pretty quickly. So there's going to be a bit of time before he feels comfortable going toe-to-toe, I think, up against Delito's Rumble. However, Rumble's advantage does lie in the ability to force mid-game teamfights.
Oh no! Assassin's
wow.
He's got the barrier, he's got the Shockwave, but Von jumps over and perfectly executes him. He finds that kill. Now 22 minutes, down a member, Random 5. Might just have to fear that this Baron will go down quickly to the Mountain Drake, to the isolation damage Behave has.
I just don't think you take the 50-50. That's the problem. This is a big lose condition for WLG if you go strictly for the 50-50 in this scenario.
Von's got double lifesteal with the Vampiric Scepter, actually taking off all the damage from that Baron.
Taking a lot of damage there, has to be careful. We'll have the
He's got a snack, he's fine.
He'll be able to keep himself back up and ready. You can see on the bottom side of the map, Rumble going to continue to push in. This is going to go down very quickly, but you can see they are trying to maintain vision. Spooky is there, the 50-50 is available. The control ward's going through. There's the teleports.
They're looking to come in for this play. 3k help on that Baron. The hook comes out by Turanaga. The quickness onto Lubins as he will just be cut through. But the Keeper's verdict, as his dying breath will de-aggro and reset the Baron. Once again, Lubins may have done what it takes to save the day, but the Equalizer comes down onto 3 members. They're calling onto Delito, not enough to quite get the kill, but Turanaga is burning low. Not going to actually get the death here, as they might just try and get onto that Baron once again. Keep your eyes on Spooky, keep your eyes on the Jarvan, but Behave jumps in, almost gets the kill, but Von actually comes over. Not going to be able to get the kill, but the Baron is still aggroed up as Von. It's just going to take down one. Behave secures that kill. Now they're looking for Spooky, who has to flag and drag away to safety, but the Shockwave lands. Von is low, but not enough to die. VZZ chases it down, finds that Shockwave. They get a kill onto the Jarvan. Baron is secured for Greece, as they only lose one.
That was kind of messy, a little bit back and forth, but it was the right idea from WLG. They were not willing to risk the 50-50. They know that the R5 was split and isolated, so they individually engaged as their assassins, tried to split the R5 roster up, making sure that they couldn't collectively group around the outside of the Baron wall, and most importantly, forcing Spooky out. Once that flag and drag had come out defensively, you knew that it was over in terms of the ability to steal that Baron right there for Spooky, because he was forced too far away from the pit. But they even went further, managed to get the kill, and that allowed them to secure. WLG can now transition into 1-3-1, and this is just forcing Spooky out. I kind of want to see what Behave did. I think he spotted Spooky out, waited for him to face check. He didn't even need to close the distance, and then he went and jumped in. Spooky was looking for a miracle flag drag or flash play into the Baron pit.
Unfortunately, he was not able to find that. He is down 3 levels as well to Behave, so his smite is actually lower, so it's even harder for him. But Behave might just try and get the assassination off it. Doesn't realize LMZS is about. That does mean Behave has to run away, but the adaptive camouflage, he's nice and safe.
Yeah, he's Kha'Zix, so you can always get yourself out of these pretty risky situations. And you can see they are now trying to push this 1-3-1, this 1-2-2 that they seem to be running with Behave on the top side of the map. They have Baron minions to work with. It's going to be very difficult with the limited wave clear that the Random 5 roster has. And you can see even just VZZ struggling to deal with the pushing power of Labrov and Bananito, and they are desperately spreading out their kind of pressure to defend against these Baron minion waves.
Yeah, they're trying their best. Von doesn't have Baron, remember, because he did get killed by VZZ, so does need the help of someone like Behave to come up.
And that might be why Behave is spending a bit more time on the top side of the map, just so he can empower that minion wave for Von. It provides a double assassin dive potential, and that's probably why you're seeing him not stick around mid with Bananito and Labrov, because he wants to make sure they're utilizing Baron across all 3 waves.
Well, these turrets are starting to go down, slowly but surely in the mid lane. They take down that tier 2. 4-1 on turrets, the gold lead now growing, 8,000 gold ahead. We Love Gaming from Greece, coming up big here in this first game of our tiebreakers. There's another turret will go down. All of the turrets, all the towers remain within the base now here for the side of Random 5 as Lubins actually does go in for an optimistic play onto Delito, has got Turanaga hanging about, but they do have to worry about the rest of their base.
Well, the more time you spend damaging Rumble, the more damage these Baron Canyon minions are going to get done. And you can see it's just the wave clear is just not there. R5 have to force and engage. They have a team fight composition. They don't have a split push composition, so they can't deal with these waves crashing into their towers. The only person with relative wave clear is the Orianna right now.
Watch that bug. Behave is looking for an assassination attempt. Not found his opportunity quite yet, but he's used his ulti just to go invisible for the moment, but just enough to zone the rest of Random 5 off as they take that mid lane inhibitor. Delito still working away at this bot lane with his Baron buff. We Love Gaming now move the Xayah, Bananito into that top lane with Baron buff to try and take out another turret. It's just League of Legends by the books here for We Love Gaming.
It's painting by numbers, you know, it's so easy for them to just siege these towers because the only person that is relevant in terms of trying to clear these waves out is Orianna, and even versus a Baron minion at this stage in the game, she's really not going to have that much impact. The only way that R5 deal with this is looking for one of those big team fights, but even if they engage, they're only going to catch 1 or 2 members max. This might be a 3 inhibitor.
They get themselves a blade cooler. LMZS is flashing away, is ignited and goes down. The carpet is laid out and Spooky unable to find an opening for his team. Von now looks for an assassination onto Lubins, but he's underneath 2 turrets, and We Love Gaming take a step back to take their 3rd inhibitor this game, and they might just look for the close right here, right now. Random 5 have to somehow defend versus all of these sieging members. These turrets are half HP. Lubins tries to go in and Turanaga gets the flag and drag off. They get themselves a Cataclysm. In comes the shutdown. It's a 1-for-1 trade so far. Von jumping in with that quickness, so you can see he tries to get the kill damage onto VZZ, but he takes him out. 2 members of Random 5 stand as they lose the turret, but Lubins has to regenerate on the fountain before he can defend.
This is the final push, though, for WLG. I really don't think they have what it takes to defend, Jake, as they're going for the Nexus.
The Nexus has been laid bare here. Random 5 make a desperation play as it goes down. Greece find the first win here in the tiebreakers.
And what a result for LGL to begin these tiebreakers, because you only need 2 wins to guarantee yourself at the top of the group. WLG did exactly what they did in the group stages, dispatched Random 5 with relative ease. They now need to do the same versus Ventus, where they struggled. Now, of course, it's not out for Random 5 just yet. If every team goes 1-on-1, it comes down to victory time. And that was a pretty solid victory, but I'm not looking at it saying that was a 24-minute win or so that we've seen. So there's plenty of opportunity, and I think Random 5, to keep themselves in the running to qualify here, have to pick a composition that goes hard in the laning phase to make sure that they get that very, very quick win.
I mean, it is literally their win condition at this point. They have to smash a game really quickly. The next game is going to be them versus Ventus, so Random 5 versus Ventus is game 2. So that will be their chance to try and come out from this game. They don't have time to like reset. They just have to come in with a hard game plan, look to smash nice and quick, and then they're in with a chance. But you've got the looks of Future Perfect, who they get a game off, they get to watch how Ventus play, and then they've got the look to pick a winner.
I actually love the draft that Future Perfect came in with here, because they know that game time is important in this particular stage of the tiebreakers. They picked winning solo lanes, they picked a super snowbally jungler, so if they did get ahead in their win, they were going to win relatively quickly. And I think what we saw here was comfort champions coming out for WLG. You had the Rumble, which just absolutely crushes Poppy, as you saw. Von was able to pop off on his Akali, and I think Behave, for me, absolute MVP, completely reacted to that 3-buff start. He knew exactly how to do a bit of counter jungling here and there. He read Spooky like a book and counter ganked really well in the early game to give himself that advantage. It's a good win for WLG.
A fantastic win for WLG, but they do get a break off. They get some time to watch our next game, which will be Random 5 taking on Ventus. So we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with that game. So don't go anywhere. See you in a second.
Twice out of 3,000, Selfmade jumps in. Selfmade gets it! And Mad Lions have bitten back. My God, that is absolutely stunning! They are the champions!
Hello and welcome back to the analyst desk, where we get to watch, or we get to go over the fact that we just saw WLG really just take out Random 5.
Smooth into right there, Tyke. I like it. Smooth, just like Random 5 in that game.
Oh.
You mean WLG?
No, he does
Nope,
not.
I meant Random 5. No. Honestly, I think Random 5 had a really strong composition drafted, but WLG did a really good job of attacking them in the early game, specifically through the jungle position and the mid lane. They were able to really just bust open the map.
I think especially, like we talked about, Behave. He got into the solo lanes. He's given a platform. The Kazakhs, he just got ahead, and he just kept rolling.
I mean, we talked about this with the mid jungle as well. They're generally the big people who decide that early game. We also saw Delito was given such a free matchup in the top lane with the Rumble. Having that TP advantage really helped them out here as well, for example.
Yeah, he had just been constantly pushing that lane up, even without getting jungle pressure for himself, so was able to have that TP advantage, as you mentioned, and make it on down here. But I think Behave, after initially looking like he was going to get shut down in the jungle, was able to go inside, counter jungle away some of those camps himself, and really put himself in a good position.
And specifically in the EU Masters, we've seen some Kazakhs go decently, some go poorly, so it's nice to see Behave able to step up for WLG here.
Yeah, I actually liked I think Lubin's was actually kind of like the shining light. He stopped so many of these Barons with the hammer and just able to keep his team in it, but it just kind of kept going back to this Baron. They were so far behind, and then this one was a little bit of an interesting call because they kind of go from both fronts. They kind of jump in on top of like all the people here, get knocked away again, try to go back on top of it, and it's just a Baron dance constantly.
It was just really, really messy as well. Like, for example, Lubin's got in there and delayed the Baron, got everyone knocked away, but died in the meantime. So then it's an easy just, okay, we didn't actually end up taking that much damage, re-engage here. And as we saw around that jungle towards the end there, it was a messy re-engage, a messy go back towards the Baron, but at the very end, as you said, WLG were just too far ahead.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the jungler just got ahead, they got their solo lanes, and then they just implemented 1-3-1. We don't need to do anything else. We got the ultimate thing for our composition, which was the Baron, and then it just ended it from there.
I think we've seen Random 5 look a little bit weak coming into this, but let's have a look up at who their opponents will be in this next tiebreaker. Ventus Esports. You have specifically a few people here who've done quite well, Viking with some of those aggressive junglers, but we're all looking down to Chrisland. Yeah,
Chrisland, obviously the star player on this team. He's piloted the Ezreal in 2 of his games. He only played 2 games. They were both wins. The one game they didn't have him in their roster was the game they dropped.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, they did drop 2 games because they're all 1 and 2.
You're so right. You're so right. I really wanted the Ezreal to be the...
You were really in on that, and I was with you all the way. But yeah, I do agree with you that he has looked good on this Ezreal. He's like, just to give you some of the stats, the 2 times he's played the Ezreal, like he's got 35% of his team's damage across both games. So like that's an average of how much damage he's doing. He's definitely the catalyst of this side.
And of course, for people who haven't maybe tuned into League in a while, that is Pinoy as well. So a very storied player in general, now staying in the Nordics as, I think, a person that's touted as maybe the best Nordics player, going up against Random 5, who, again, after that first game, aren't looking particularly strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we were looking at this game before we saw Random 5 play, and it was going to be a battle of the bottom lane. I still think there is room for that for Random 5. They just need to shore up some of their early game weaknesses, which may be difficult up against a player like Viking. We all know about his Rengar, but he just loves to play very, like, solo carry-like champions in the jungle, like the Kazakhs we saw in that last game, which really exploited Random 5.
Yeah, I think, of course, previously being of the name Best Kitty Cat, of course, you expect to see things like the Rengar, but certainly, as you said, even just the more standard aggressive picks, such as the Rek'Sai, may even see either bans or early picks.
Yeah, I think the Rek'Sai is definitely going to be a huge kind of priority for these guys. Again, another strength for Ventus is they've picked, completely different things over their entire thing. The Ezreal being the only kind of like double pick they actually picked up for Pinoy, or Chrisland, excuse me. And, that's the kind of thing that I feel like Random 5 struggle against. They have a very set style. They have a very set kind of, we know we want a team fight, whereas the 2 other teams, Ventus and the side of WLG, they have a lot more flexibility in that kind of draft.
Okay, so we are into pick bans now, so we see Ventus start moving away, taking away that Hecarim as well from Spooky. Makes a lot of sense. One of the concerns as well for Ventus is that in some of their losses, their communication really seemed to break down, such as some of those Shen ultimates from Quickseth coming in at either very early or not coming in at all.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things, but I think actually the strength of Ventus is they actually come out of the gates kind of flying pretty good. They have, they've taken out of the 3 games, they got 2 first towers and 2 first bloods out of those 2, so both against Random 5 and WLG. So Random 5 need to make sure they can shore up that kind of early game aggression.
Yeah, so these target bans right off the bat are very interesting because usually we don't see that much attention given over to the jungle pool. Right now, I'm looking at the Jarvan as being the immediate first lock-in for Ventus. With the Hecarim gone from Spooky, now the Rek'Sai as well as the Rengar's a no-brainer.
Funny enough, the Rise, though, I was going to say, is left open.
And Akali.
Sona Taric as well. Everything's up.
Yeah, this is basically like everyone's banned kind of specific things, and all the quote-unquote meta stuff, really strong picks right now, are still available.
But Crysland is known for those mages as well, and we've seen Fnatic bring out the Veigar Pike in the bot lane to respond to Sona Taric, so maybe trying to bait Random 5 into it.
Yeah, I think with the Rise as well, you set yourself up for a strong 1-3-1 potentially if you go that route. It doesn't seem like Random 5 want to go for the Sona Taric themselves, instead getting very strong laning. And with that Jace being locked in, it really dissuades Sleeping from taking the Rise into the top lane. So they can sort of force that into mid and just have a good matchup topside.
Interesting so far at the very least. So looking again, as you said, that Jay's a very strong laner in their own right. Could be some responses coming out. You also see the Galio as well, so going for quite strong laners in general. I'm interested to see what maybe Vendetta follows it up on the bot side. We've seen a lot of Kai'Sa from Vendetta as when they look particularly strong.
Yeah, the Kai'Sa already banned away there as well too, so some of those options being taken away. I think, you know, you could look at something like the Ezreal one more time. It's on the board for Crysland. He's wanted to go back toward it in the past, and that's going to be the answer.
Don't fix what's not broken.
And also the thing with Quickset, of course, being known for the Thresh means that if you are maybe worried about running into communication problems again, going for those comfort picks makes that a lot easier for you to avoid.
And also as well, like, it's just such a safe bot lane. Like, there's no real reason that you should be losing that. And yes, you might not 100% take it over, but you still have kill potential with the death sentences. And Ezreal, when he picks up that early Sheen, can actually put down a lot of damage.
Okay, we did see the Kalista locked in, though, so that's a fairly aggressive lane with that hail of blades that we are used to seeing. Technically, lethal tempo's an option, but has been really falling down in terms of priority in comparison because you just want to get ahead early as the Kalista to really get rolling.
Yeah, paired alongside the Galio as well. That's a very strong 2 versus 2 that we saw a lot of over in the LCK, and then it filtered into some of these other regions. It's just a beastly 2v2. Now, what I am most curious to see is what is going to be the answer into Jace for Ventus. I think we've seen a lot of picks like the Poppy in the past is sort of a good one to go into him. The Jarvan as well, which gets banned away.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, these are the 3 things that Viking has played so far this tournament. The Kha'Zix, the Rengar, and the Jarvan. So he has to bring out something completely new. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays something like the Lee Sin. Ivern banned away as well. A lot of jungle priority in the second ban phase.
I'm actually wondering if we have a jungle Karthus coming in, because when Karthus was getting picked up a whole bunch, you would often see these second rotation Ivern bans to remove it, but Elise was another really strong pick into that and just a beastly early game champ in general.
Yeah, I was also going to say we could have even seen the Gragas there if you want to try snowball some of those early lanes, but as you said, could maybe see the Karthus coming out for Viking here, who does like to play those carry-heavy champions. Generally, we expect aggression, but that's a good one to still be a carry and not be forced into making earlier plays.
But you know what does fit into aggression is something like a Kindred or a Nocturne. Nocturne gets locked in. That is so much dive potential that you're able to get in for Ventus, and it also kind of gives them a lot of kill potential with these kind of point-and-click CCs with the
Yes,
Rise.
so Ventus need a really good answer into Jace, is the thing, because Nocturne works very well into 1-3-1 comps, and if you can shut down the Jace, that's going to be very good, but you also can suspect that Elise is going to be trying to give attention towards that top lane early on, so you need something that is a good matchup that can potentially set up for ganks at Nocturne's level 6. It's actually just going to be the Rise answer into it, which is interesting to me, because I really didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah, I think that Talia going into the mid lane, Rise to the top side is generally what we're going to see. Obviously, you have to wait till everything's locked in there. But like you said, it's going to be a pretty difficult matchup for the Rise. Jay should have priority most of the time, and that's a Yasuo.
Yeah, Yasuo into Talia, I really like this. He can use the wind wall to stop the the rocks from flying his way. He can also dive onto her inside of the minion wave. It's a very aggressive early game comp from Random 5.
And the wind wall also blocks Weaver's wall as well. So if you're able to angle yourself and put it up that way, you can completely stop the Talia from going anywhere. And I really, really do like this pickup. I actually, again, we talked about this last game. I really like this draft from Random 5, but it's about executing on it. That's the important thing.
Yeah, so it's big shout outs to Ed and Prietel for the drafts, but then you have to execute upon those drafts, and sometimes we have seen Random 5.
He's trying. He's trying his best. Like,
there's flashes of brilliance in Random 5, not just from the draft, but even just in terms of the play. We talked about Vendetta quite a bit, but Then looking at the other side, Ventus were coming in again as potentially the stronger team because they've got Crystalline back, and they still have the ability to execute. What do you think, well, of this Nocturne pick, which is rather aggressive? They did ban away some of its potential counters with the likes of the Ivern, though.
Yeah, I actually think the Nocturne is super important for Ventus in this game because both side lanes, if you think that they want to split up into 1-3-1, they have some tough opponents to go against. So having that global ability is going to be very important to swing those side lane matchups.
Okay, so just real quick, guys, hit me with some predictions.
I really like this random 5 comp, but I've been bitten before. I'm going to go Ventus.
I'll go with Random 5. I like their comp better, but Elise needs to do some serious work early on.
Okay, so it's a split desk, but let's see what the casters think upstairs. Over to Hipbrain and Nick Scoundrel.
Thank you very much. You got it right this time. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Tiebreakers. Hipbrain and Scoundrel once again joining you for our second game of the day. I'm pretty excited to get going with this one because Nocturne Jungle, it's been a while since we've seen that.
Nocturne Jungle has been kind of in and out of competitive play. He is one of those junglers that relies on 6 to have most impact. He can gank before 6, but it does rely on a lot of setup from your lanes. Now, Talia and Ryze can definitely do that,
yes.
But you know, it does rely on setup from lanes before that point. What I do like about it, and what we've seen here, is a massive evolution in playstyle from both Random 5 and apparently from Ventus. It's game time. Game time matters. It is actually hugely important. So let's jump into this game.
I'm really excited to get going with this game as we move into our second tiebreaker of the day. Ventus on that blue side versus Random 5 on the red side. I was kind of hoping it was going to be a Nocturne mid. It actually smashes Yasuo.
Yeah, we were saying, come on, channel your inner Vedius, go for the Nocturne mid, but Priskanet just going to happily run with the Talia, and again, these are sort of matchups that can snowball either way, and Elise is a little bit more active in the early game. That's why Ender was saying you want Elise to head towards this top and mid lane. This is very solo lane orientated from both Random 5 and Ventus, both of them quite happy to enter into 1-3-1, although I'd argue that Random 5 function in a 1-3-1 slightly better. Talia, not the best 1-3-1 solo laner to actually push there, but you do have Crysland on the teleport if he does want to go to a side lane to clear waves. And speaking of Crysland's, Ezreal, it's a signature pick for him.
It's very, very good for him. One of the notes we got about Crysland was his ability to play this Ezreal, and when he knows how to play defensively and when to go aggressive on this Ezreal. So good comfort pick coming forward for the Ventus bot laner. Also, we got sleeping on this Ryze. We've seen so much priority on the Ryze for the entirety of the European Masters. I haven't seen it versus a Jace so far, so I do want to have a little kind of hit on how does this matchup actually go with the Jace versus Ryze?
Well, it's the Ryze always struggles into matchups that are slightly extended range on him, so Jace can always keep that range versus Ryze. But if you get the ability to walk up and land your combo, Jace either has to commit or he just won't be able to out-trade. So Ryze, I think once that tier gets finished up for him, he's going to start to stack up that damage. You know, he can just walk up to the Jace and land a boatload of damage, and Jace might not have the ability to trade back against it.
All right, well, for now, Lubin's quite happy just keeping this wave where it is off that Poppy. Remember, for Random 5, this is a game about resetting and getting that snowball going. You got Spooky on the Elise, an early presence, early pressure jungler. Did have a good start in the last game with those rotations, catching out the likes of Behave, but Behave just kind of pulled it back in the later stages. And MZS just makes sure that the blue buff is still there.
Interesting. He basically just looking as to if Nocturne had started on that side of the map or not, but it looks like he does catch that blue buff, so they'll know that he's moving up towards that side of the map. And Nocturne is one of those junglers that just wants to clear. Like, he's going to go for a full clear because it just wants to funnel that experience onto him. He wants to reset those camps more readily so he can hit 6 more quickly. And that means he's less likely to be active here compared to Spooky in the early game. And that's a lot of damage coming up from Priskanet.
Well, I was about to say that one of the weaknesses of Talia is her damage is more single target focused now that the Q doesn't do splash. You can't just infinitely shove the wave like we used to see. But if you do find a pick like that with a seismic shove onto the unraveled earth, you can really start to chunk through some of these members. And LMZS does take that to the face.
I'm confused. I really think Spooky could have got away with double river scuttling here. I don't think he was going to be pressured by a Nocturne in the river. Maybe he felt uncomfortable doing that because he didn't have eyes on the bottom side of the map. But I think he definitely could have got both river scuttlers with relative ease. As long as they had that vision and that knowledge as to where Nocturne was, it might just be a case that they weren't confident where he was. But now Nocturne gets a full clear. He's cleared slightly quicker than the Elise, and he may even end up getting that river scuttler, although he's backing right in front of it. So
I think in his head it's been taken by the Elise, maybe.
Yeah, I'm guessing in his head it's been taken by the Elise, but it's always worth checking if you're just right next to it.
Yeah, well, Spooky, on this at least, he's got pushing lanes, so it means his ganking is going to suffer a little bit, just purely because you have to either tower dive to get a gank off, which isn't advisable, especially at level 3 on an Elise. So for the moment, he's now moving in with these pushing lanes into the jungle of Viking, but Viking around on that side of the map. Uses the repel, and Viking might just spot him out here. Has got that fear he can use. He tries to set the spell shield, and the Cocoon does come down as Spooky uses the flash away to safety.
Very early spell shield coming out from Viking. I'm not sure why he was trying to do that while she was still in spider form. Maybe he was expecting the instantaneous cocoon, but I would have held it until she at least turned into human form, because that gives you then a barrier where you can continue to chase up and try and get the fear off. I just felt that spell shield was a little bit early coming out from Viking there. He might have been more effective in the trade. However, what we have seen is a lot of deep vision going down, and it does look like Spooky's trying to keep tabs on those jungle pathings of Viking, but Viking stuck to a very, very standard jungle path. Just looks for the resets, is going to rotate around those same jungle camps, and I'm interested to note as to whether he try and goes for the River Scuttler off the back of this full clip.
It was actually really nice to see him. He switched into human form, went for the spit, and then threw the cocoon out. But as we approach the 5-minute mark here, both of these teams have kind of been a little bit more hesitant to kind of go for the early game plays so far. We can see this is working out in favor of Ventus, so they pulled themselves a 500 gold lead ahead. You expect some of that comes off the back of Crystal with this Kleptomancy. He should be able to get some bonus gold, and as you can see, 300 gold, sorry, sitting in his favor in this bot lane.
Yeah, they are getting shoved in by the Galio and the Callista, of course. You can see LMZS tries to go in onto Priskanet. Vikings sitting on the sidelines, not level 6, so can't respond just yet. But, I mean, on this clear, maybe with River Scuttler, he'll be very close to 6 and can already get onto the map. And Spooky really hasn't had the opportunity. And you raised the point that there was a lot of pushing lanes. There really wasn't many good opportunities for Spooky. So now Spooky's best option is to try and think where Viking is likely to try and land that ultimate and try and essentially be there at the right time.
Well, now he's got that level 6 almost coming up. It's not finished yet. Got a little ahead of myself. We'll be getting close to that paranoia, like you said. So that's what we're going to be tracking. Viking in these next few seconds of the game. But LMZS will be spotted out on a ward here. He's actually always looking for Viking.
But he doesn't want to get caught out in that mid lane. This is a fairly scary proposition. I think they might be going for the blue buff reset here. It is a small spike coming out for LMZS, and Viking not being level 6 yet is a bit of a big deal, although there's a big rotation up to this top side of the map right now.
Yeah, 3 members top side already. They do get spotted out on a ward here for random 5, so they step away. They decide don't want to go for that tower dive onto sleeping, and they're going to just reset back into that mid lane. But this ward in that pixel brush has done a lot of work here for Ventus. It allows them to kind of rotate around the map and catch random 5 sleeping.
Well, oh, wait a second. Spooky's caught out here from that pixel ward.
Does have no flash down, actually. It already has been used. The seismic shove comes out. The knockup goes wide from LMZS and uses that repel as that's going to force multiple members in. Spooky goes down for first blood, and Priskanet running away. No tornado available to LMZS, and now he's stuck in the enemy jungle. His flash is down, his ignite is down, and Quickstep is hunting for the kill here. Viking also closing in, but doesn't have that paranoia available. And the ward does spot LMZS out as he's trying to make himself a cheeky base away, but Priskanet is chasing.
Trying to maybe look to get out through the red side jungle. He could also go for an execute if that's the case, but he is just wasting a lot of time right now moving through that red side jungle. They are going to try and catch up here. Viking not level 6. LMZS,
oh no, Viking spotted him.
He's going to go for the execute. He's going to go for the execute here.
It's going to be close. He's got the minion wave to work with, actually. So yeah, LMZS does get executed. Bought a lot of time, like you said, and that was a wave pushing in to Priskanet. So actually, he's the one that loses minions from this. Meanwhile, though, Spooky soloing up this Infernal Drake.
Yeah, I think when they've seen the rotation come out now, so now Quickstep is going to look for a ward over the top. Is he going to get it? No, he's not. The lantern goes over there. They can see it's happening.
Oh, that's a shot. Viking has the paranoia. The taunt is instant, but it's spell shielded up. Viking's trying to chase in, but you can still Spooky still onto that Infernal Drake. Turanaga gets himself 1 kill as VZZ is just stacking spears. The Drake is confirmed and secured by Random 5, and now Priskanet entering into that fray. VZZ is dodging everything Priskanet throws out as he gets the slow with the Rend. Priskanet falls as VZZ finds the kill, but Turanaga is over so low, forces his flash away to safety, and Random 5 find 2 kills.
They threw so much damage onto Toranaga, who was able to just be pulled back into Kalista with the ultimate. In the meantime, a complete focus from Spooky on the Drake, which secured the Inferno. It was a little bit of a hectic fight. It went on for too long. Those stacks built up for the Kalista, and she was able to get a good executing blow off there. But realistically, that should have gone. I really think that should have gone R5's way. I mean, I'm sorry, Ventus's way. Why did you? I mean, could he only see the Galio? That's the question that I have here. Could he only see the Galio? Because my first choice would have been onto Spooky.
I think Spooky walked around the corner of the wall at the Dragon Pit, which lost them vision.
Yeah, I think because the rest of this fight's kind of irrelevant. As you can see, like, VZZ picks up Prisconnect. There was really only one of them to get out.
Oh, Spooky may have found Viking, but actually the Cocoon comes down. That's some serious damages. You see Lubins jumps onto Sleeping, and the 1v1s are happening everywhere. Quickstep forces out the jump away for the moment as Lubins is going in for the tower dive. 2 for none in favor of Random 5, but Quickstep forces a flash and a flay. He's getting the auto attack. The support is looking for the kill. Now a tower dive and the Quickstep is very real. Spooky flashes away from Prisconnect in a very dangerous position here as Quickstep now throws a hook, but LMZS throws out the wind wall to keep himself alive, and Random 5 just looking to make their grand escape here, but actually they might just turn it back around. Seismic shove away. Prisconnect gets a lantern to safety, and Ventus will be able to walk out of this jungle.
It looks like Random 5 are starting to get control here. Spooky having a bit of an impact, trying to find those openings in between the paranoias from Viking, and Viking has been caught sleeping several times in these engages. Top lane has been going rough for Sleeping. It is a matchup that generally Jace wins from range. Sleeping has to commit to the fight. Spooky just caught out here. Again, Viking just not able to spell shield the Cocoon. Can't trade effectively once that Q is down, and he unfortunately goes down to the execute coming from release. At this point then, Lubez just somehow gets a really wonderful tower dive off onto Sleeping, who is just not at a strong point in the game right now. And Quickset is just unable to finish the kill as the rest of R5 look to move up on that top side of the map. But it's a good set of rotations coming out from R5. Their solo laners are getting strong. This is where they wanted to be. They wanted to transition this out into a 1-3-1.
We'll have to see whether or not they can pull that execution off. Get my words muddled up there. They've got that Infernal Drake, so they do have that bonus damage on all of their abilities, but you've also got to keep in mind that Mountain Drake is the next Drake up. Toranaga and VZZ might just look for the instant kill onto Chrislin. He jumps away from the teleport, but those spears are in, and Chrislin will go down. Toranaga and VZZ find that execute, the Viking hanging about. Paranoia is available. They're trying to get the damage open for the moment, but they've got the Fate's Call to work with. Toranaga just as punches away to safety. Random 5 disengaged with the pick.
Yeah, they didn't want to commit to VZZ for some reason. I guess they know his flash is available, but all this rotating is getting nothing done for Ventus at this point in time. They're allowing LMZS the time to get onto these plates. They're obviously ignoring that top lane matchup, which is difficult for Sleeping. It stays moderately even if they're just cleaning waves, but when it comes to these engages at the longer ranges, Lubens is just the one that's in control.
All right, 11 minutes on the clock. 19,000 gold to 17,000 gold. It's a 2,000 gold lead over to the likes of Random 5, as you can see where those gold, where the gold lead is currently sitting. Lubins heavily in favor over Sleeping, and this kind of goes back to that point you said at the beginning of the game. Ryze typically does kind of struggle into these matchups where he's a little bit outranged. Yeah,
and it's just difficult for him. You have to commit as Ryze. You have to go for the full combo, but obviously Jace is pretty good at jumping into melee range and trying to trade back. This is the problem for Sleeping. He just hasn't found many good opportunities because Nocturne pre-6 has not been able to get up there. His ultimates have been used on the bottom side of the map, and so there's not been many good plans for him to try and find the engage 1v1 versus Lubens. You leave them to their own devices, the Jace is just going to come out ahead, and with the Yomu spike, that is a huge spike in terms of 1v1 potential.
Now, I really like this rotation from Random 5, sending their bot lane up to get onto this Rift Herald. Remember, Random 5 are on a timer this game. They have to win in 28 minutes if this game can force out a tie. This is their win condition, to win faster than they lost in the last game. As a hook lands onto Lubins, he's actually just being chunked through. Essence Flare is going to be enough for him to get killed out as Quickstep secures that. The Rift Herald will go down on the other side of the map.
It was a really, really nice hook from Quickstep right there. I love the rotation out of Random 5, like you said. They got 3 plates on the bottom side of the map, so that's more than enough. You can't really force that turret much more without committing to a hard dive. So they take those 3 plates, they get the gold from it, then they rotate to the top side of the map to get the Rift Herald, and that's going to buy a lot of plates from this. It may even end up getting the first tower of the game. So they got more gold generation by rotating early to pick up the Rift Herald because they were stronger, and that has allowed them to get a first tower and a load of plating off this too.
All right, well, might actually get a second charge off, uncontested, as LMZS has that knock-up available, gets chunked through, and Sleeping is forced to flash over the wall here. Good solo pick, almost coming forward for the random 5 mid laner, as that charge did go down onto the Rift Tail, so it's going to chunk through this turret a little bit here. Crystalline able to answer out and pick up a turret of his own. Bluebeams maybe looking for a bit of a poke onto Crystalline.
Despite seemingly Random 5 being in control, there is only a 1,000 gold difference between the two teams right now, so we really shouldn't overstate the kind of advantage that Random 5 has generated for themselves. You still have a very strong Nordic roster right now. They are in a fairly equal trading position. They are still in range of these item spikes. Ezreal now on his 2-item spike too, so this is a good, strong point for Crystalline, especially when he can get that Manamuni upgraded. They are going to lose another dragon here, an Infernal and a Mountain Drake. Not a great set of losses if you're the side of Ventus. But again, you can still find that fight. You still have a very strong mid game, and you can still bring yourself into this game, especially with the burst damage that you have on your roster. You've got a lot of single target burst damage. If you can just find that right pick in a team fight, combo it with Viking's ultimate, Ventus can find a fight and then convert that into Baron pretty easily.
And they could have the opportunity to equalize the Infernal Drakes, as the next Drake up will be that Infernal, and Vikings can get the hand on that. That burst you were talking about becomes even more potent. Turnaga will take a hook hit from Quickstep into the play, gets himself the taunt off onto one, but Priskanet looking just to poke and prod him away. Justice Punch will come forward, and Taranaga is able to make his way out.
No real threat there. VSS was so close, he could have just used the ultimate, although you can see Crislin's damage.
Oh my
Super.
lord, he's going in. The Fate's Call comes out, and VZZ will save his support's life.
Yeah, that is Crislin's. Finds that combo, lots of damage coming through on the 2-item spike. Hasn't finished into the Mirror Mana yet, so hasn't got that insane damage burst that you would get with that finished item. But it is Crislin looking pretty strong right now. VZZ also very strong, but this is the signature pick for Crislin. He is very good in this Ezreal. We expect him to perform in this mid game.
And we actually just saw Lubins get a solo kill onto Sleeping in that bot lane while Crislin was looking for the assassination attempt onto Turanaga, so
It's a bad matchup for Rise if he just can't find equality in that laning phase or get some attention from Nocturne.
oh, LMZS actually just looking for the kill. This great seismic shove away, but Flash is available to LMZF if he wants to look for Priskanet, but he just wall surfs away. Nice and quick on that Talia. Quickstep fishing for Spooky.
Spooky hasn't actually had to do much this game. He's really been focusing on the neutral objectives. Most of his lanes have kind of been winning themselves, especially towards that top side of the map, where you really expect Lubanes to be a real thorn in the side of Ventus as this game progresses. Don't know if anyone can actually match this Jace right now, and that's going to be a real issue. It's going to be up to Sleeping or Priskanet to find an engage, and I think they're going to need the support of Viking to actually find a 2v1 scenario. Exactly like Endo was saying, it's a rough matchup in a side lane. You need Viking to come in with the ultimate and force it into a 2v1, and especially as we head towards the second level of the ultimate, he'll have that extended range. That's what Viking needs to do. He needs to find opportunities on the map without giving too much up like Baron. When Baron spawns, and especially with Lubanes on the bottom side of the map, it's going to be more difficult to do so.
It might just be looking for this play. Lubin stepping forward, speeds himself up, and he gets instantly room prison and cut through. Viking, we're going to pick this kill up as Sleeping secures that for the team. Great pick there for Ventus, and that's what you're talking about. They need to find these picks, they need to find these openings, but VZZ just putting some attention onto this turret. The tower shots are coming down, forces the hill out. Crislin just goes in and hard. They throw out the Weaver's wall to cut Turanaga off. He gets the taunt off onto one, but in comes Viking with a paranoia. They split up from the team, and the flea comes down. Priskanet secures that kill, and all of a sudden, Ventus find 2 kills on the map versus Random 5.
And they didn't use their ultimate on Lubanes. That meant that they were able to get Viking into that fight really quickly, but realistically, that was a huge error from VZZ, so greedy for the turret, and you're up against an Ezreal. He's gonna close that distance. A final basic attack was enough to finish him off. That was really good predatory play coming out from Crislin, and it's given Ventus a massive boost back into this game. It's super equal now. They were starting to fall behind.
You can see as these item spikes are starting to get hit as well, Viking building towards that Guardian Angel. And we'll just look at this again. I mean, VZZ that was too aggressive, man. Like, what are you doing there? Then a great wall comes out from Priskanet to make sure Turanaga can't actually make his way out back towards the team. The Zonya's not going to do too much, and they just cut through him.
It's just a good Weaver's Wall. They knew that he burnt his flash earlier. Didn't have... Actually, no, he's got his flash up now, so maybe he just thought he was dead regardless, but...
I actually want to quickly play a game with you, Scoundrel.
Yeah.
How much health is that turret on mid lane?
Which one?
The mid lane turret.
I'm going to say 2.
2. Observer, give me the turret. 5.
Oh, I was-
3 HP off.
3 HP. It was basically sub 10 for sure. So.
VZZ died for that tower, man.
VZZ died. It's one basic attack away. They definitely don't need to commit too much to get that resource, but they gave away a needless advantage. And now things are dead even between these teams. And honestly, as this game goes on, you can't help but feel that the mid game is going to start to get dominated by VT. You've got the Guardian Angel now onto Viking. A big commit for this red buff on this red side of the map. Can Ventus actually look for a fight here? Because Chrisland is so strong right now. This is the big power spike for Ezreal.
This man is absolutely smashing the true shot. Not enough to get the kill, but in comes the hero's entrance. Spooky gets flayed back. They throw out the paranoia, and LMZS flashes away to safety. He will go down. A 2-man knocker comes in with a face call, and Turanaga next up on the menu. Chrisland gets a double kill. 4 members of Random 5 fall, and Ventus will take an Infernal Drake as their prize.
This is the strong mid game from Ventus. The Mira mana completed for Chrisland, and he is popping off on one of his best champions. That was an easy fight because of how much work Chrisland did to a core component of the team fight for Random 5 just before that fight even started. This is when you look to strike for Ventus. Take another fight, set up for Baron, utilize the Baron. Even in a siege situation, I don't even know if you need to commit to a 1-3-1. Just go for the siege with the Talia and the Rise.
Look at this damage, man.
I know. Look at Chrisland. Chrisland literally set this fight up. He makes it easier than it needs to be for Ventus. That was such, yeah, loads of damage onto Spooky too as well. Really, really good setup. It was an easy ult coming out from Viking, all mediated again by Chrisland. I would love to see the damage stats for that particular fight, but I'm sure Chrisland absolutely smurfed it.
That ward there, that ward you can see just in the bottom right of your screen was what gave the vision for Viking to jump in and assassinate LMZS.
It was good, a good decisive, proactive move coming out from Viking too. I mean, Chrisland is he going for the Ludens now? Yeah, he's going for the Ludens as the third item to give him even more burst damage.
I like this. I like full burst.
It's the immediate replacement for the Archangel staff that you can no longer build for the Ezreal.
Also gives you slightly better wave clear than you used to have, because you obviously get that little kind of pop, the little bursts from the Ludens. But I do want to talk about the history of these two teams, because the last time they faced up in the group stages, Random 5 won this matchup versus Ventus. This is why we have a three-way tie, because all of the 3 teams we got playing at the moment have beaten each other.
They were playing without Chrisland in that matchup, though, I believe. There was the one match where they didn't have Chrisland. If you talk to anybody that's kind of assessed the strength of Ventus, a lot of them say Chrisland is the star player. Wait a second, that was a little bit aggressive for that ward, and Priskine almost gets punished for it. Don't think that Random 5 can capitalize, but this bot lane matchup is still proving a massive issue for Sleeping.
Sleeping's being chunked. Oh, the shock blast of the Airy! Holy moly, Lubines! With the solo kill, now Turanaga flashes in. He gets himself a taunt onto one. Chrisland will get taken out by the last breath. Viking jumps into the backslide, but he's now going to start to get ripped through. That GA will not save him for long. Quickstep can't find a way to save his jungler, and in comes the rest of the team. They land a hook into a seismic shot. A lot of damage comes out from that unraveled one. The taunt is there. Ventus find themselves a 1-man turnaround. But still, 4 members of Random 5 stand. And it was a good punish for them.
A really good punish. Sleeping is absolutely struggling against Lubanes right now. You cannot put him in the 1v1. I don't even think he can defend turrets right now. The good thing for Ventus is that Priskine was able to defend that Baron. But you can see, I think Ventus at this point, they just need to look for big 5v5 engages. They need to be the one being proactive around Baron, because if you let R5 start that split push, you allow Lubanes to get that solo kill like he did onto Sleeping. That's just going to make this a 4v5 scenario where Lubanes can teleport in. Silver lining, out of that engage, Lubanes bent teleport and Sleeping didn't.
Yes, that is the key thing. And also you can see Sleeping building towards that Righteous Glory. Seen this quite a lot on these top lane rises, but it will help him a little bit versus Lubines on this Jace. But with that Black Cleaver, with the Yeomans, with all the lethality he's got, he should still have a pretty easy time cutting through Sleeping.
Yeah, Sleeping's still going to struggle, I think, in the 1v1 right now. And I think once the Righteous Glory is completed, that's the time for VT to just say, oh, okay, Nocturne ultimate, pop the Righteous Glory Rise, get the really strong Ezreal who's finished the Ludens directly into that fight, and then start things off.
They land themselves a hook. Turanaga's coming in. They force that teleport out already, and Crystalline just jumps in. Priskine secures that kill. They got the Realm Walk. They're trying to send multiple members onto Spooky. They're chasing down that Spider. Sleeping flashes in for the Rune Prison. Hook goes a little bit wide, and Spooky able to make his way out, but now LMZS on that flank will force him away as Lubines lands a Shock Blast, but Ventus, they find themselves a kill, and now they're going to step back towards the Baron.
Grizzland just looking for a combo there. Anybody that steps a little bit too close to that red side jungle, but it's not enough to get the Baron for Ventus. That's the problem for them. They need to be more decisive. They need to get a bigger team fight win because they know how scary the likes of LMZS and Lubanes will be when locked in that Baron pit area, especially when Turinaga can respawn, use that hero's entrance to just knock everybody up and provide a massive ultimate setup for LMZS. So it needs to be more decisive. However, I love how proactive that looked from Quickset. I think they need to be looking for more engages like that because they are strong at this point in the game.
All right, well, 25 minutes on the clock here. The gold has started to equalize out here, but Chrisland, a real threat for the likes of Random 5. But you got to look at Lubians, who's also going to be really poking and chunking members out on this Jace. As 5 members of Random 5 are starting to dance around and try and control the Baron area.
This is really rough for Random 5 because, you know, we talk a lot about when the Ventus team is strong. I actually think Random 5 drop off pretty hard as well. So not committing to a split push and going to a strict 5v5 versus a team that's really strong right now, I actually think favors Ventus anyway. I would be committing or hard committing to a split push if I was Random 5.
I mean, Random 5 needs to just commit quite soon. They've only got 4 minutes left to actually win the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, they need, yeah.
They actually only have 4 minutes left, so they need to like hard pull a trigger.
That's actually a really good point because they've lost the game already.
Yeah.
They have to win in 28 minutes and 10 seconds, so they basically have to force this Baron. Otherwise, they don't get in.
Now, Turinaga misses out on the taunt into the hook. Chrisland on that flank. They throw down the Paranoia, and that's going to be a pick onto Turinaga. Random 5 starting to struggle as Priskanet on that flank for the moment. LMZS taking a serious amount of poke from Priskanet and sleeping, looking to chase him. A great wind wall into a cocoon, though. They're trying to get that damage down. The True Shot Barrage chunks through members as the Shot Blast is there, and Random 5 are forced to step away.
Yeah, but like you said, that timer is there for
It's
Random
ticking.
5. It is absolutely ticking. They cannot go 2-0 right now, so they're going to be at the mercy of a game time decision if we go to a full tie. And like you said, they were beaten in a quicker time by WLG. That's probably why they felt they needed to group up around Baron anyway, because I think their better win condition was to just stick Jace in the bot lane and continue the 1v1 at all costs. Then maybe look to Yasuo in another side lane and try and find 1v1s with LMZS. They do not have a lot of time to commit to this though. They basically have to go for an all-in and try and win in the next team fight. Otherwise, they are strictly not making it through to groups.
And that'd be so disheartening.
To playoffs even, sorry.
Playoffs, yeah, they made it through to groups, don't worry. That would be very disheartening here for the Random 5 roster. Obviously, the Balkan region want to have a good showing here. And even if they don't win in the next 28 minutes, it's still a pride release, right? They've got 1 win, they want to look for 2. That is still what's up for play. It's not just about, you know, making sure you get this win. They do want to try and keep their pride high. They want to walk out with a win as their last game in the European Masters.
You're right, and look, we all know game time sucks. Like, game time is not the best decider in the world in terms of getting someone out of a tiebreaker situation, but that is the rules that they are beholden to, and you know, that is when you have to think about changing up your draft and your play style. They have about 2 minutes to get this done, and I don't feel like they've got a significant enough of advantage. In fact, they're even behind in gold right now, and that's a major issue for them. I genuinely think they were stronger in the split push. They look like they are trying to commit to kind of a split push strategy, but VT are just playing the game they need to play.
There is that wombo combo. I said it in the last game. Random 5 can execute a wombo, throw out that big ulti from the Kalista into a Yasuo ult, and you just throw everything down and you just try and burst them. That is still a potential win condition for them, but VT just playing further back. They know what is at stake here, so they're just gonna. They don't want to give up a big team fight. They know that Random 5 might be getting a little bit itchy, wanting to find that fight, so they're playing with respect towards their opponents. As Chrisland just searching out with that True Shot Barrage.
And Chrisland is so much stronger than VZZ right now in these team fights, and he's only going to continue to do huge single target damage, huge burst single target damage too. You can see he's going to overextend here, but doesn't get punished for it. VZZ looking for the big ultimate.
They're getting the last breath comes down. That's going to be a lot of damage down already as Chrisland's found himself 1. It's going to be 2 kills picked up in favor of Ventus. The Realm Warp and the Paranoia. Members are jumping in. A hook lands onto the backline. A 2-man play as Quickstep goes golden. 2, 3, 4 members have fallen for the side of Random 5, and Ventus will turn towards the Baron.
You can't help but feel that engage was a little bit split into 2 minds for VZZ. He basically said, let's throw it in. Quickstep trying to zone away Lubins right now.
No! Lubins gets flayed away from the Taste of the Skies, and Chrisland just melts through him. The delayed ace for Ventus, along with the Baron and a red buff to top it off. Ventus look to control the game.
Ventus are in complete control, not even looking to, they have got control right now. They have the Baron buff, they can group up, they can even split off if they want to, although I do think they strictly have a really strong tower dive team fight right now. They've got great siege with all the range too. They probably can just brute force their way into a lane. They might even go 1-4 because of the teleport on Sleeping coming up pretty soon. But this is all about the brute force coming out now. If Krislin lands a combo, if Priskanet lands a combo, you're going to get someone on random 5 so low. And that last team fight was beautiful. It was an attempted setup for the Wombo combo, like you said, but it only landed onto one member of Ventus. And that was, well, that's not enough. Not enough for this Yasuo to pop off in these team fight situations. Everybody else, some great stopwatches coming out from Ventus. They basically saved the fight because 2 people went so low from the Yasuo. They needed those stopwatches to remain alive. But after that, it was Krislin's show. Just cleaned up, left, right, and center.
Well, MZF actually looking to go in forward. It has the Steel Tempest stacked up. You can see that Paranoia is available. LMZS flashes forward, throws down the last breath. In comes the Galio, and Viking secures one already for the side of Ventus. He does get picked up on the back line by Spooky, but Turanaga jumps in, gets a 2-man taunt, but it's not doing anything because Priskanet is securing kills left, right, and center. Sleeping takes the cocoon to the face, and he's just going to be able to chase for the kill, but a flash play comes out from Cloyset. All of the CC lands, and a full ace once again in favor of Ventus.
And Ventus are now looking to push. They want to try and win this as quick as possible, remember. If they just land a time in and they can get another win over the WLG boys, they will find themselves in the playoff stages. They're pushing for those finest Nexus towers. Can they get this win right now?
It was a solid showing here from Random 5, but it looks like Ventus have done what it takes to take out this game. They've got a big wave of Baroned up minions to work with. The first turret will go down. The second one is quick to fall as well. LMZS spawns up in time, but it's not going to be enough to save the day as the Nexus falls and Ventus take the win.
And that sets us up really nicely for a big showdown right at the end of the day. Unfortunately, that means that Random 5 will not be in that position to qualify right now. They did lose 2 games. That means it's impossible mathematically for them to come out of this tiebreaker at this point. But right now we're setting up for Ventus taking on WLG. Ventus versus WLG is going to be huge because now game time is irrelevant. It's all about who wins the game. So this is where compositions are probably going to shift back to a little bit more of the norm. I love the fact that Krislin stepped up huge on his signature champion, Ezreal. He was an absolute monster. It looked a little bit shaky from Ventus in the early game, but they shored it up around that 2-item Ezreal spike, and that's where we started to see things pop off. They were looking for those fights. I don't think Random 5 pushed that Jace split push enough. They had such a massive advantage in the Sleeping versus Luben's 1v1. I just don't know if they pushed it enough. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they were being threatened too much by that engage coming out from Ventus. But regardless, Ventus have set things up so nicely for the Nordic region to push themselves to that round of 8.
Yeah, I think it was the panic of the timer, but maybe threw them a little bit, so they decided they had to go now or never. That does give Ventus the win, and that will also force us into our next game to be very meaningful, because the winner of our next game versus Future Perfect, We Love Gaming versus Ventus will decide who is second out of this group, and will be taking on Fnatic in tomorrow's playoff game. So we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with Future Perfect taking on Ventus. You don't want to miss this. We'll see you in a second.
Bounce out to 3,000, Selfmade jumps in. Selfmade gets it! And Mad Lions have bitten back.
We just saw Ventus taking down Random 5, knocking the Balkans out of the European Masters. And Ventus looking decently strong.
Yeah, it was the Crislin show. He showed up, he had the Ezreal one more time.
One person from Ventus looking particularly strong.
I was just about to say, I want to edit that. It's like, you know, Crislin getting his Ezreal for a third time this year Masters, and he honestly, like, from a shaky early game, literally just grabbed everyone, put him on his shoulders, and was like, all right, guys, I got this.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. We actually saw some of that ban phase focusing out some of the other Ventus members. Maybe going forward, we see that change, because that Ezreal was so key to how that game went.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at the draft, they did some good things, you know, on the side of Random 5 where they shut down. I felt like top lane and jungle especially, they had a distinct advantage, but bottom lane got so out of control, especially like in this play when Jace TP's bot lane after the map is completely split up. It was a super easy dive to set up Crislin. It felt like they just literally gave him so many kills and then he took over.
I feel like that one did look like actually just giving him a kill, but yes, over commitments as well from both sides. As you said, some messy decision making from Random 5 really did cost them and allow that Ezreal to pull into the lead.
And I think as well, like, you know, the pressure of this kind of a match, you're already 0-1 down. You know that you can't outright qualify until, like, you know, unless we go towards the timings of tiebreakers. But then, you know, you're putting yourself under pressure, and you can see that in their play. There was little small mistakes, little, you know, missteps every there and now. And honestly, Ventus, like you said, the Crislin show, he just kind of just came up and said, right, I'm just going to carry this game from now on.
And you can see so many of the key team fights were just decided off the massive amount of Ezreal damage that was being going down consistently. You could see willing to play very far forward on the Ezreal was the big thing, and then this is the final kind of forced engage from Random 5.
Yeah, even when they tried to get onto him, he has so much armor because of his build as well as the built-in mobility. He was able to kite on back there. He rushed for the early 40% CDR as well to Luden's Echo, so it was just a really solid performance from him on this pick, and it looked quite good.
Yeah, and even then as well, like, you know, the Thresh pick and the Ezreal, we talked about it on the desk, it's incredibly safe, and we even saw it there just on that last one there. Then a Thresh Lantern, Dark Passage, you caught me? No, you haven't, and I'm out. And it just became so easy for Ventus.
And that's one of the other things to talk about as well. Quickset is known as the Thresh main. Is that something else you may want to focus, because now you are going in and you could at least hurt the bot lane so you have a bigger window to punish the whole of Ventus?
I mean, I think you look at that game and you say, obviously there were a lot of different things that really worked here for Ventus, but ultimately I don't think you need to ban the Thresh. Maybe the Ezreal, we've only seen Crislin play it. That one I could get more on board with, but I think there are a lot of like really high priority picks that are worth bans more than these ones that did work well for Ventus.
Okay, so we are now left with one tiebreaker to decide who will go forward and face Fnatic Rising in the knockout stage of the European Masters. It is Ventus Esports versus, that is going to be Future Perfect, We Love Gaming. So this is going to be a big one, and we've already seen these guys play. I would say neither looks really heavily convincing, so I'm really interested to get some of your guys' thoughts on who you think has maybe the slight edge coming into this before draft.
I think it goes, for me personally, I think both teams have shown that they are able to be flexible. I think they've all shown that they can play different styles, different things. I do think that We Love Gaming has looked a little bit more consistent in it. I think that they're, you know, yes, they did drop the big, and yes, forcing us into the tiebreakers as well, but I think it is just kind of more favored in them, but it's only 55-45. I definitely don't think it's a sure thing.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be close. For me, I want to look at sort of like lane by lane where the advantages lie, because I think for Future Perfect, you look at top lane, you have Delito versus Sleeping. I think that is very Delito favored, especially with Behave in the jungle, the star player for Future Perfect. I think the top side of the map is very weighted for that roster. But on the other side of things, you have, you know, Crislin in the bottom lane. That's going to be really, really hard to deal with. So it does create this sort of split map that I think is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and then a lot of that will, of course, come down to that mid lane. And as you said, the jungle can also influence there as well. So could be big in terms of that early game. The other thing I'd like to point out is, of course, that Ventus did beat We Love Gaming to force the tiebreaker. So they technically are coming in here as the team that's already managed to win. But as was pointed out a few times by us already, was that that's off the back of an Ezreal from Crislin who had just come back from being subbed out. So I'm very interested to see how We Love Gaming respond, especially considering that they've already lost once. They already have that ability to go, look, this is what beat us.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm going to have my eyes on here in the draft is the bottom lane for Future Perfect, because if they can get a safe support like the Tom Kench or Tarek for Labrov, they can go even in that bottom lane. They can sustain on through, and they can have a stronger team fight, especially if they leave that Ezreal open. You take a strong crit ADC that can survive laning phase, you know the top side of your map is going to do well. I think that is what would give Future Perfect an edge.
Okay, but a lot of quick bans coming in. None of them are the Ezreal, and as you touched on, the Sona Tarek has been left open too.
But more importantly, the Ezreal is almost certainly going to be picked up for Ventus, but they're taking away the Thresh. I really like this from Future Perfect because, again, it gets rid of that safety in that bot side that you get from the Thresh.
Yeah, and we did see Quickseth move towards the Morgana in the past as well for this, but we also saw a lot of mistimed Black Shields, so maybe that's something that WLG see as a potential to upset with.
I don't think they're going to lock this. I'm not going to talk about it. But I do think the Ezreal should come in this first rotation of picks at some point. I think they will pick it up. Galio was also a very good pick for them as well at some points as well.
Yeah, I think Galio Jarvan is what I would really like to see here. Not a fan of the Kazakhs.
No.
Early with the Kazakhs as well. I'm surprised to see that again with the Rek'Sai banned, though this is decent in terms of early aggression. You have the Lee Sin, the Rek'Sai taken away. This is, I want to have the 1v1 in the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I mean, we have seen it picking up popularity here. Ultimately, though, I think they put a little bit too much priority on it. I'm actually curious to see how the rest of the composition unfolds, because this reads to me as not focused on the team fight, but with, you know, a skirmishing jungler and the global Galio, maybe a little bit of a split map.
But often when you see things like the Kazakhs locked in, the instant response is something like Skarner, something that could just lock him down and avoid being assassinated so easily.
Yeah, I think as well, like the Skarner could be good. The Olaf, another thing that you can just keep running at people. And I like these answers to Future Perfect. They're almost kind of turning around to the side of Ventus and say, pick Ezreal. We know how to deal with it this time around. And Corki being picked up, most likely going into the mid lane.
Yeah, going for the heavy 131 here has got to be the answer. And I now think that if you are Future Perfect, you want to ban away the Kennen, you want to ban away the Jace, some of those staple bans we've seen taken away from the top lane, because I think if you get your hands on the Jace with a Corki, like that's really hard to go against unless you have hard engage.
Yeah, and interestingly, what I think Ventus are doing here as well is they're technically flexing the Corki to the bot lane, because Crystalline does also lean towards mages, has that Veigar and Ziggs in the back pocket as well to set up and also allow them to play very far back in a 1-3-1 setup, as you touched on, Ender.
Ezreal taken away, though, so that is guaranteed to be Crystalline on something brand new. Cassiopeia taken away from the side of Ventus, and I like that. The Rumble as well. We saw Toledo on it literally just a game ago, so, you know, it's definitely something that they're focusing on, like you said, to try and put pressure on towards that top side, get that 1-3-1 into a good spot.
Yeah, I wonder if with the Rumble ban, they're just looking to blind pick a safe top laner here. You know, I don't personally love it, but when you see, you know, the top lane matchup, Toledo, you expect to have that advantage. Ventus might just be looking to take, to put Sleeping on something more reliable in the top lane to just set up fights.
The one thing that does make me think is potentially they are going back to that Corki flex to the bot lane and maybe going for something more aggressive as a mid-counter. But I'm kind of waiting to see a lot from Ventus, and I think this first lock will give us an idea. I understand exactly what you're saying with potential to lock in a tank here would make sense based on their bans.
Kristen's also being banned away in that second rotation. The Kalista taken away. There's Veigar. So we've actually said this before, that the Corki can flex, and also potentially it also could go into that bot lane as well. So it's still a flex for both.
It's very unlikely though, because I was actually talking to a lot of the Nordic scene, and everyone said if you say Veigar locked in, it is not being flexed. It is Crystalline picking it up.
So where is the Nautilus going?
Is this Nautilus
That's
mid?
Nautilus mid lane for sure. Yeah. I like it.
We've seen this kind of resurge with the 9.8 buffs, but we are playing a 9.7, guys.
Yeah.
So you don't see that big buff to the Q coming in. However, still has a decent amount of damage and can, of course, just go tank.
Yeah, I mean, this composition from Future Perfect is just like super raid boss. You know, you have the hard engage of the Nautilus, you know, you land one hook, you have the ultimate as well, and then you just run at people with the Kai'Sa and the Olaf. That's what they're going to be looking for, is a little bit harder engage, which might actually be pretty difficult. I think Ventus have a lot of tools to try and split the map, and even with the Veigar cage, if they start coming at you, you just put that down and say, no, we're gonna get out of this fight.
One of the reasons I do like WLG going very tanky is because you are dealing with Kazakh's Veigar. A lot of that is somewhat burst-based, so maybe that's where WLG have gone, look, we want as many tanky members as possible, and then if Kai'Sa be our main damage dealer, the one concern then is, of course, if Kai'Sa falls, do you have enough damage to take out the big heavy damage from Ventus?
I think losing the Kai'Sa could be rough. I mean, you do have an Olaf and an Urgot too, do deal pretty solid damage in towards the late game, but I think Ventus have a lot of champions that
also
if
AP
they're
Nautilus.
not, potentially, you know, you have the tools to try and kite out these people and burst them down.
Okay, so now that we've seen the drafts, now that you have seen it come out, we're just going to go real quick into the predictions. Who do you think is going to make it through and continue on in the European Masters?
We have seen super scrappy games today, and that makes me think the 1-3-1 is going to win out. My vote is with Ventus.
I'm going to go the opposite. I think WLG have looked more consistent, and I think they can make this comp work.
Well, I think our casters are going to have to enjoy this game because we see a lot of beefy guys. The Nautilus mid's always going to be fun. Hitbrain and Excoundrel for the last game of the day. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our last game, the decider of who makes it out of the group stages and into that knockout stage starting up tomorrow. I'm very excited to get going with this. We got a Nocturne, it's not a Nocturne, we had a Nocturne last game. We have a Nautilus mid lane, we have a Veigar bot lane, everything's all over the spot. What are you expecting here? What are you looking for?
Well, I would be lying to you if I said I knew how the Nautilus functioned in the mid lane. I don't see it often enough to really be able to give you a solidified opinion. Obviously, we can talk about the basics, which is the fact it's a range versus melee matchup. However, the kill pressure is there. You have the hook after Valkyrie, so if you can find some kind of gank pressure, we might see that pop off here. Do think in terms of teamfight situations, you're looking at Ventus with a very strong teamfight composition, especially if Krislin starts to get ahead on this Veigar. We know how much he favors that particular champion, but you just can't help but feel something special coming out for WLG again. They pick these kind of lane matchups that they want. We'll see what happens.
I mean, this is actually our second Nautilus mid of the tournament. I want to check whether or not it was Von who played it. It did play full AP when it was picked up last time. So you actually went quite
I think
bursty.
it's a Von special. I'm pretty sure it's a Von special.
I had heard rumors of it but not many mid laners are really willing to pick it. I do worry about into the Corki with the extra range that Corki has. Like you said, if Naut lands a hook, there's a lot of kill pressure, especially if it's AP Naut.
Yeah.
But in these earlier stages of the game, when he's not going to be quite so bursty, Priskanek can just Phosphorus Bomb and just look to kind of poke him out.
The only thing that they have going for them is the fact that you are looking at a composition that if you get into a teamfight area, there is so much CC to be thrown down from WLG that Bananito should be able to pop off. And with the cleanse as well, he might be able to dodge out some specific CC. He might be given a lot of space in these team fights to just pop off and start, popping heads, essentially.
I love that term.
Popping heads.
All right, well, laners are taking their positions. Junglers both starting up on the same side of the map. So no vertical jungling going to be seen this game as Behave. Wants to get that blue buff, wants to keep his mana up so he can keep spamming the axe throw.
Yep, and he's just going to do a full clear, it looks like, on the top side of the map. Viking not going to be pushing into his side of the jungle either. So yeah, we should just see normal jungle pathing coming out from these guys. Wondering where Behave wants to move towards. Now, mid lane, there is a lot of kill pressure because of the CC that can be thrown down. You have the Thresh Hook in the bot lane, which can definitely be effective at getting a gank off. And Krislin has so much damage onto Krislin already coming out from Bananito.
I mean, they're only level 1 on this Veigar, so don't have the ability to throw down the Event Horizon, look to lock people up, so...
Just low base health as well on Veigar.
Yes.
It's just you're going to get bursted pretty heavily. So I'm looking for Behave to impact that mid and that bot lane mostly. And then maybe post-6 look for ganks onto sleeping on the top side of the map too.
You got to keep in mind, Vikings playing this Kha'Zix was a denial pick from Behave. Behave looked really bloody good on that in the first game of the day. I think he went like 5 or 6-0. Played fantastically well. Viking also had a good game on the Nocturne just coming out of this, so both of these teams coming in swinging into this game. Ventus kind of still on that high from that last win as Von misses out on the anchor, but looks like Priskanek just going to continue to poke and farm away.
Looks like Von's just going to back off here, having pushed that wave in. Again, remember, this is such a high-stakes game for both of these teams. The winner will directly move on to that playoff bracket where they will take on Fnatic tomorrow, or even Sunday, sorry. I think it's Sunday they'll be taking on Fnatic. So this win will mean everything for their European Masters career. You lose, you go home. You win, you continue in the competition for yet another day. So I envision things to be taken a little bit more carefully, a little bit more, I guess, prediction coming through in terms of, attempting to make big, beefy plays. You don't want to go ham in this game. Game time doesn't really mean anything to these guys. We talked a little bit about that over the last 2 games. Now it's just strictly about the win, so I expect everybody to make very calculated plays coming into this one.
And you can see that's definitely affected the picks they're going for here. You see, Kai'Sa wants to get a few items under her belt. Curious to see if it's the Stormrazor or the Infinity Edge first coming out of the Kai'Sa. Personally, I'm more of an advocate for the Stormrazor build.
Oh, so much damage if you land that hook from Von. If you can get it, it's difficult to Valkyrie out of because you immediately get rooted onto the floor. And that's where that kill pressure can come through from Behave. This is something that Von plays a lot. He feels very comfortable playing on it, it seems, and it also provides a lot to a team fight. Nautilus has got so much CC stacked into his kit that it just is going to provide such a boon in a team fight situation for Bananito, because you have to get through the Nautilus, you have to get through the Thresh, and you have to get through the Urgot before you can look to try and focus down Bananito. And even for Assassins, that's going to be hard because there are so many hurdles you have to cross.
Now, Friscanet does have that fleet of footwork now, so in the lane, we'll at least be able to sustain from these combos from Von, but as that AP starts to stack up, as more of these hooks start to land, Friscanet will really feel the pressure in this lane. A couple of hooks land, he just gets chunked so low. He's low on mana now as well, which is the key thing. He has his teleport available, but Behave looking to pick up this Infernal Drake the second it spawns.
Yeah, he's really going for the immediate Infernal Drake here. They have priority in mid, they have priority in bot. You can see now Labrov just zoning away Viking, making sure they keep their eyes on him. Does look like Viking's going to rotate round, and Behave's going to have to immediately pull off.
Well, Labrov actually throws out the hook. Quickstep has that Justice Punch. Von trying to come in. They force the flash from Labrov, but a free-man taunt comes down. Phosphorus Bomb is there, and
disgusting.
Viking finds first blood. Now Crystalline fighting Bananito off on the other side of the map. Infernal Drake remains aggroed, and it's starting to really hurt the members of Ventus as they're trying to turn it around. Von has no mana, but Quickstep is taking a lot of poke from this dragon, so they're going to go in for the taunt onto Behave, but the health bar is already low. The flash comes in, and Bananito will secure that kill. He uses the cleanse to keep himself alive. Bananito turning onto Priskanet, forces that flash out, but Viking comes over the wall, tries to get the sustain, and it's a double kill for Bananito.
That was all over the place. I really expected WLG to just last a little bit longer around that dragon fight and utilize a big hook from Von, but they were very reluctant to commit because Kha'Zix could isolate the first person going in. Oh, Dragon doing so much work in that fight for both sides. It was a good heads up from Ventus to know that that was going on, because I think Labrov rotated out of lane and it was pretty obvious at that point. But Viking kind of knew what was going on. Let's take a look here. This was the insane start for Quickstep. He picks up a massive, massive taunt, but unfortunately they only take out one member. In the meantime, you have a Viagar in the early game really not threatening Bananito. No one willing to commit to Bananito by himself on that bottom side of this dragon. So in the meantime, WLG are just playing that dragon kite game and allowing the dragon to do the work for them.
Yeah, I was about to say, while they were 3v4, they had that big members. All of the hooks are going to land here onto Priskanet, and Lantern to boot as he actually dodges away, but the flash comes forward and Behave secures the kill with an axe.
Yeah, that is that disgusting amount of CC that you can layer down onto a single target. And that is what happens when you get hooked in. I do like that Priskanet really held on to his Valkyrie for as long as he could. Labrov didn't get the follow-up hooks, and he was almost out. But Von did enough just to secure that with that Q coming out from Behave too.
But we haven't looked too much at this top lane, actually. While all the action's been happening elsewhere, Sleeping and Delito have just been kind of farming away versus each other. Sleeping with that Kleptomancy is doing a good job to get as much gold from Delito as possible, but the CS lead is in favor of Delito, and he's got that cull as well, so he will be able to stack up even more gold.
Tells me everything that I need to know. They're looking for a later game spike coming out from this team. And again, this team scales so well. Nautilus will scale nicely in terms of that shielding. You're going to have the Kai'Sa, which scales incredibly well too. We know that Urgot does well in the late game also. This team fight is pretty scary just because of how many layers of CC that you're going to have to deal with coming out from WLG in a full 5v5 situation. The 1-3-1, I think, is slightly in favor of VT, but just because you know that eventually these two ranged later game scale, or rather Corki later game scaling, is going to find that pressure in a side lane. But I don't think either team is like fully committed to a 1-3-1 or a split push strategy here.
Well, Viking actually hanging about here, maybe looking for a pick onto Bananito and Labrov. Quickstep, no flash, but that taunt is available. They got the Event Horizon to work with. Quickstep stepping forward, the adaptive camouflage in, a great play back. Does mean they can just turn on to Labrov though, but he sacrifices himself for the life of his AD carry. Delito flashes him forward, actually throws down the ulti. Slicing Maelstrom does land, and Delito tries to look for that kill. Will not get the Fear Beyond Death down, and Sleeping is able to walk away.
He flashed in, he really couldn't close the gap there. Lots of damage coming down onto him, and with that single kill in the bot lane, this might set up Ventus. Von is pretty scary at this point. He does have that ultimate ready to go, but I don't think the rest of WLG are going to get there in time. So this is a nice pickup right now for Ventus.
Yeah, Priskanet with that package was able to close the gap nice and quick if need be. Infernal Drake gets picked up for Ventus, and For these high-stake games, we are getting some high-stake dragons. The next one is going to be a Mountain Drake, so another high-priority Drake for both of these teams.
We haven't really seen too many of the lesser Drakes, in inverted commas, just because it's, again, I think they spawn when it is that high-stakes environment. Mountain Drake will be good, I think, for both teams, especially for someone like WLG who could use that ability to shred down those neutral objectives more quickly. You can see Von looking for the engage here, but he didn't land that hook, and I don't think he's going to go all in if you can't land that Q initially.
Yeah, well, the package dropped. It meant he couldn't really go for the depth charge. It wouldn't have resulted in too much if Friskanet able to make his way away to safety on this Corki. He's still trying to farm up as much as possible. He also has a coal for himself, something we've seen increasingly on these Corkis in the mid lane, especially into the likes of a Nautilus, where you go for the coal, want to just scale up, get that Triforce as quick as possible.
So I'll be looking now for the Rift Herald. That's going to be the next big objective that I think you'll want to try and focus down. I do think these mid-game team fights are pretty good for WLG, or these mid-game skirmishes, because again, like I said, CC can single-handedly win these for you. So I want to keep an eye on that Rift Herald if whether a fight breaks out. Do think if we go into a 3v3 with Behave, Von, and Delito, they can win out in the 3v3 versus Friskanet, Sleeping, and Viking right now. That's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on as the next few minutes progress.
I mean, Von's doing a good job of pushing into this Corki on the AP Nautilus. He's got one Aptone to work with. Friskanet needs to be careful. The Dredge line connects. He even throws out that depth charge to knock him up. Behave trying to close that distance, but Viking now coming over the wall with that adaptive camouflage on. The damage is coming down, and that is Viking picking up the kill as he runs away, turns invisible, and makes his way out. Friskanet almost gets turned back onto by Behave, but now you can see him from the mid lane. Bananito forces the cleanse out on himself as he gets caught out by the taunt and the event horizon.
Yeah, Ventus starting to turn things on. Chrisland in this bot lane now that he's got that Hextech GLP 500. He's starting to find those engages with that Glacial Augment. Can just proc that, set up the cage, and then look for that burst damage coming out from his ultimate too. Quickset can so easily follow up in the cage with the taunt because there's nowhere for the Kai'Sa to go if she doesn't have the cleanse up. So it's just a really good way to guarantee yourself some CC landing onto a high priority target. And Ventus is starting to take control of this game.
And this is exactly what you hit on in the last game. With Chrisland returning to the likes of Ventus, they're starting to look very good again. He got his Ezreal, which was a comfort pick for him in the last game. Now picking himself a very aggressive kill lane here with a Galio Veigar. There was some questionable stuff that happened at the beginning of the game, mainly around that Infernal Drake, to be fair, so it wasn't particularly the lane's fault. But with this, they haven't let that affect them. They've turned it back around, and now in this bot lane, starting to apply the pressure onto Bananito, who is now Summoner spellless. Behave has found out Viking, but both of the mids are about, and no one's really willing to go for the fight, so Behave will take this grab.
You can see that Viking has got a lot of kills behind him. He's going for the Black Cleaver build, it seems like. Not going to go as aggressive as the Dustblade of Drakthar, and I like that because you've got much tankier targets to deal with. As Delito now being focused out by Sleeping, here comes the teleport.
They force that teleport out, Sleeping running away, Behave on the chase. In comes Von. Dredge line is available, but a teleport is coming forward. They might just to turn the fight here. Sleeping has that slicing Maelstrom, does throw it out. The Fear Beyond Death goes wide, but Sleeping will dodge away. Von tries to get the kill. Sleeping makes the grand escape, and Von will fall. 2 kills in favor of Ventus.
Oh, absolute disaster. They felt they'd got that Corki, and that was so low on Sleeping. His HP was minuscule. And now Viking's going to be able to capitalize and go for the Rift Herald 2. This is clean from Ventus. They are starting to ramp up. They're looking to find their place in that round of 8. And right now, they are the ones that are in the driving seat.
Oh, teleports are coming in. A great hook, actually, to stop Quickstep. He lands the taunt onto one. In comes Sleeping. Slicing Maelstrom is down. A teleport is completing, and We Love Gaming looking to turn around as Bananito goes in with a killer instant. The Acapian Rain secures the kill, but it doesn't matter because Sleeping turns it back around, dodging away from the hooks as he looks to stun Delito up. A 1-for-1 in the bot lane while a turret falls in the top.
All of these teleports coming out. I swear we've had about 15 teleports in the last 30 seconds. That has been insane, but it is a little bit of a consolation prize for WLG right now. Ventus have got their first turret. They've taken a lot of plates off the map. They've got the Rift Herald to work with in their next lane that they so choose to put the pressure down in. They are in control of this game. WLG are the ones that have to step up. The good part is that we have a 3-on-1 Kai'Sa to work with. So Bananito is in a position where he can start to scale up. He's working towards that Ginsu's, and the Storm Raider Ginsu spike is good.
It's going to be very, very big, but it will not be finished in time for that Mountain Drake, which is literally this second just spawned up. So you can see with this, Ventus now rotating their mid lane in, their bot lane into mid. They're sending the Corki towards the top, and they want to put all their power towards this bot side of the map because they want to get this Drake. And Quickstep, he wants to get a kill. The Ragnarok's already been forced out. The package gets dropped. Lavrov is taking so much damage from Priskanet. The slow from the GLP is there, and Crystalline looking for the chase. He has the nuke. He doesn't need it because it's going to be a double kill for Priskanet.
Without the Nautilus in these fights, they are getting cleaned up. You need the Nautilus there for the CC and the re-engage, and it is just a little bit of over-aggressive positioning coming out from WLG, not respecting the vision control that Ventus have around that Dragon area, and now Von might even be caught out too.
Von has been slowed. The Event Horizon pins him in. The taunt comes down for Quickstep, and Priskanet is on a killing spree this game.
The draft, which seems a little bit more regular coming out of Ventus, is starting to really ramp up here. 5,000 gold advantage accrued for them, mainly through that jungle and mid portion of the map, where you can see Priskanet and Viking have done so much work rotating, a huge kill participation for both of them. But it's just been brilliant reaction to side lane plays, really shutting down that Nautilus, not giving him too much in this game. He's 0-4-1. And WLG, I think they need to hold on here. Their win condition now really relies on that Kai'Sa.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be playing around Bananito on this Kai'Sa, but if we do look at what the next Drake spawning up, it's another Mountain Drake, so the stakes stay high while all of those plays are starting to break out as well. The turret went down in the top lane, so the gold lead now 6,000 gold ahead for the Nordic team, and they're looking to try and punch their way through into that knockout stage.
If you're WLG, I don't know why you just weren't grouped up consistently around these neutral objectives. That's why I'm a little bit confused, because you have a Nautilus, right? Like, you need to just utilize that in these skirmishes. Wherever your jungler goes, your Nautilus needs to be there to support him instantaneously. And that's why Behave got caught out without Nautilus. You saw how awkward that team fight was for WLG, because no one can commit if the Nautilus isn't there, neither the Thresh. And that's where they're sort of getting punished by Ventus, who have done a really good job of controlling vision control on the entrances to their jungle and around that Dragon area. And the fact their side lane control has been brilliant this game too.
Well, they are looking to group up at the moment. They've got vision control. Dredge line does go down into the Event Horizon. A taunt onto multiple members, but Quickstep will fall as Behave picks that kill up.
They still had to burn the cleanse on Bananito though, because he walked directly into the cage. So it's really not the worst result right now for
Oh, the
Ventus.
stun onto Bananito. Not enough to actually turn it into a real kill, but Priskanet just poking away onto Von for the moment. There is a hook, but that landed onto a chicken.
You can see the Rift Arrow now opened up in this mid lane. Might be enough to get them this turret. I don't know how many of WLG are going to try and defend against this, as Von gets slammed into the side of the cage right now.
That is really unfortunate. Hook gets dodged away, but the Dredge line lands. They throw out the slicing Maelstrom. Priskanet's alive! Sleeping turns that fight back around as Viking launches over the wall, and now Sleeping hungry for blood. Can't quite commit because Delito coming in from that flank. Viking will slow him down as they throw out the Fear Beyond Death. Sleeping able to jump away. In comes the heroic entrance into a knock-up. Quickstep not going to be able to turn it for the moment, and it looks like Ventus will be able to make their way out.
Playing without Bananito in these fights is really hurting WLG. That was better with the Nautilus, but you need your 3-on-1 Kai'Sa. The Ginsu's is there. This is one tiny sliver of hope for WLG, but I really think Ventus are just in prime control of this game right now. They've got a really snowball jungler. Corki is starting to pop off. He's got his 2-item spike. I think it's going to be very difficult to keep your Kai'Sa alive, especially with her cleanse on cooldown. And Baron spawning in the next 2 and 3 minutes. They might be able to take a fight just before Baron spawns and look to close out.
They might also just be able to get their attention onto that second Mountain Drake that spawns just before. And that means this Drake will melt. It will liquefy to Priskanet on this Corki, who's already got 2 items finished up. He's got the Rapid Fire, his cannon, he's got the Triforce. He's going to be able to take through this objective nice and quick. But for the moment, they're staying around this mid lane. They want to gain and remain in control of this portion of the map. As you can see, Crystalline now finished up the double slow items. He's got himself Spoopy Ghost. He's got the Hextech Hosepipe.
There's plenty of control in these team fights as well, which means you're going to really slow down the likes of Delito and Von, who need to be in that shorter range to get the work done. If you can keep them under control, you're going to limit the damage that Von can do in team fights. You're going to limit the damage that Delito can do. That's a lot of burst.
Lavrov uses the stopwatch. Bananito comes in. Dredgeline goes a little bit wide. The Spooky Ghost come out to slow everyone down, and now Sleeping jumps in. They've got that purge. It's a cut through and a kill in favor of Sleeping. Now Von jumps into the mists of free. Crystalline just dodges away. 3 members of WLG fall, and now Ventus will turn towards this tower. They might even continue for the second one.
I think they can. They have got such an advantage over WLG here. This Nautilus mid has just failed spectacularly. And I really think they missed a big opportunity to try and play around mid-game skirmishes with him. I've got to credit Ventus, though. They have done such an excellent job of playing around their side lanes. They have been constantly active on the map. They've been isolating and making sure that it's difficult for WLG to group up, all through their vision control, all through their ability to rotate from mid lane and react to plays across the map. They are in complete control right now.
Let's have a little look at this fight once again.
I mean, what more can you say? Von basically walks into the middle by himself, no one there to follow him up. You're not going to do any damage as a 0-5 Nautilus. And unfortunately, because of the positioning of Delito, because he came in through the river and he didn't have flash at that point, I don't think he wasn't able to flash over the wall to get out. Flanked by sleeping on the cannon, nothing you can do in that situation. And the rest of WLG were reluctant to commit.
I mean, it was like a bad Kung Fu movie. They were going in one by one, letting the good guys take them out. But it looks like, for now, WLG want to get their hands on to this Drake. 5 members are here. A hook gets dodged out, but they still have Von, who lands it on. But they do get themselves the Event Horizon. Quickstep with a taunt onto one member, throws out that depth charge. In comes Sleeping on the sideline with the slicing Maelstrom. And Ventus have come alive in the fight. 3 kills have been picked up. The Drake is confirmed and secured by WLG, but it doesn't matter because Ventus can now make their way up the mid lane and towards that Baron.
Yeah, they can absolutely just go straight to Baron here. Sleeping zoned out. The only member that mattered from WLG, Bananito, landed about 3 basic attacks that entire fight just because of Sleeping's positioning. And unfortunately, the rest of WLG just have no damage. It's all about the Kai'Sa here. Delito's too far behind. You have a 0-7 mid lane Nautilus. And it's so simple for Ventus as they pick up the Baron. These team fights are going to be clean cut. They just need to put Sleeping between Bananito and the rest of the fight, and there is nothing that WLG can do. Look at this. There you go. Sleeping zones out Bananito, lands about 3 basic attacks. Sleeping procs his stopwatch and he knew it was over. That's it. That's nothing you can do in this situation. Unless Bananito can burst out a member that's zoning him away instantaneously, and I don't think he's going to be anywhere near that point, I just don't see a way that WLG can win these team fights.
And you see Priskanet now working towards that Infinity Edge. You've got the Nullifying Orb, the Oblivion Orb, sorry, not Nullifying Orb, the Spellbinders and Protobelt on Sleeping. He is going to be doing oh so much damage as Crystalline slows down one member, but can't actually find himself a point to find the Event Horizon. There is a flank coming forward from Von on that Nautilus, but he's forced to join up with the team. They throw a lot onto Delito to chunk him for the moment. In comes the hook, but it doesn't quite find his mark, and WLG now struggling to defend while Sleeping, split pushing on the other side of the map on this Kennen. He's going to force 4 members towards him. The Protobelt comes out, and WLG actually looking for that play. The Protobelt into the dredge line, into Bananito. Hooks after hooks get layered through the slicing Maelstrom. Comes to buy time, but in the meantime, Ventus just go onto the inhibitor.
I think WLG needs to try and commit to a 4 versus 5 in this situation. You can see Labrov working his way through the flash hook.
Oh, doesn't quite make its mark. And in comes the Void Seeker. They slow up multiple members. A dredge line lands onto one, but Von is just deleted. Crystalline annihilates him, and now they're looking to chase for more, but Delito makes his way out, and it looks like WLG have disengaged for the moment. Viking goes invisible, but he's not going to be able to turn the fight as Bananito is there. They've got that teleport to work with. Ventus may just be looking to close this game out in 22 minutes. They've got the Baron buff minions to work with, and they're onto the turret. Bananito throws out a Void Seeker. They're trying to turn it. Can they do so? The turret half HP. The slows are there. The teleport's coming in. Sleeping doesn't have that slicing Maelstrom, but it doesn't matter. Quickstep lands a one-man taunt, and in comes the rest of the fight. Half HP still on that turret, and with this, Ventus step away, pick up the next wave of Baron buff minions, and they're looking to close right here.
They have such good tower-taking potential as well with that Corki being so far ahead. The Baron up minions are getting so much work done. They pull in, but the ultimate can come through.
They've got that damage onto Sleeping. A taunt comes out by Quickstep. Bananito's still alive, but Viking takes him out. It's a triple kill for the Corki. Sorry, double kill. The tower taunted me out. And with that, Ventus take the win, and they progress into the knockouts.
In the quickest game of today too, 23 minutes versus WLG, and honestly that mid lane Nautilus just did not work out. I get the idea behind it. I think there was some potential there. You saw some early ganks where they comboed the CC, where they constantly had him separated from the jungle. I think you need to be stuck to behave if you're playing mid lane Nautilus like that, because you get caught out single-handedly or by the Kazakhs yourself, you're just dead. They didn't manage to snowball it. They couldn't even stall it out for the Kai'Sa. And Ventus, what a game from them.
Yeah.
They, again, like I said, both Priskanet and Jungler just had an insane game that was so clean. They just managed to rotate between the side lanes, which were doing really well. They had great vision control over the river areas. They essentially caught out WLG one by one and just were able to snowball off that. It was so clean from Ventus. One of the best games I've seen them play in this tournament so far.
I completely agree. Fantastic game for Ventus, and congratulations on getting yourself into the knockout stage. But to break that game down a little bit more, we're going to pass it over to the analyst desk.
Well, that was close.
I don't think so.
I have different opinions on that statement.
You're allowed to have that opinion.
You're allowed to be wrong.
Exactly.
But certainly, yeah, Ventus looking incredibly strong. This time it's not just the Crystalline show. As was touched on there at the end of the cast, is the jungle and mid lane showing up. And we often talk about mid-jungle duos when the early game goes well. That whole game went very well for Ventus.
Oh yeah, and the best part is that we had some questions about the early priority that this team put on the Kazakhs within their draft, and the Kazakhs looked great in there. It was so many scrappy fights, and that was how the day was going, you know, the skirmish-heavy style of gameplay, and they had the abilities to really go into that type of fight and succeed.
Yeah, and you even see super early Dragon Tech. It's also, you haven't got full control from the side of WLG on this one, so I get the idea the Veigar isn't super scary at this moment in time, but it takes so long to take down these dragons. This is such a long fight.
One of the things we didn't talk about as well is the fact that Veigar, I mean, you throw down the cage and your team's winning. The utility alone, you don't need as much damage following up because you simply have that with the rest of your comp.
Yeah, like again, like it's just kind of you so much to be able to work with. Utility, like you said, the baby cage goes down, and it's just like you mentioned, Ender, as well, this Kazakhs was able to just get into these skirmishes, into these kind of like 3v2s, 2v2s, 1v1s, that kind of thing like that. And I got to admit, actually, right now, like the sleeping on this Kennen actually looks super solid, and I think that the slicing maelstroms were very good.
And one of the other things we were saying was that there was 4 AP champions on Ventus, and they were playing into all tanks. It's got to feel rough to be consistently losing those team fights.
Yeah, because they just never got to a point on WLG where you could build up the MR to contest against it. And you saw, like, once you started getting advantages in these solo lanes, it was just really hard. Future Perfect kept trying to force these fights, and it ended up getting turned on them nearly every single time with that Veigar ult.
And one of the things you're noticing from a lot of these replays as well is that Bananito is putting out no damage.
I was just about to say, it's like every single one of those like major team fights, it was baby cage down, and Bananito's like, okay, I gotta go. No, I can't go that way. And it's like, and he was just sort of like sitting there, and then the Nautilus was like, I'm going, let's go. And then he's like looking behind him with like, yeah, boom, I'm dead. So it was a fantastic. The Veigar pick worked exceptionally well, I feel, for the side of Ventus Esports, and I think that, you know, deservedly they go through as the second seed from this group.
Yeah, and then we saw the Nautilus, as you said, kind of not working out so well, kind of going 0-9 away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gonna be a few question marks with that one, but certainly I think the Ventus is the big thing to focus on, because now they can proceed through this group as the top of the tiebreaker as well. The other thing we didn't talk about is, of course, Random 5 dropping earlier in the day as well. The Balkans not having the same representation we've seen in previous European Masters, not making it out of the group this time around.
Yeah, so of course this screen that you see right there just shows during the actual like regular group scoreline. Today was about determining which team could move on forward, and with a win against Random 5 and a win against Future Perfect, they're going to move on.
Yeah, and again, Nordics, you know, they're not down and out just yet. Had a pretty terrible play-ins, you know, call a spade, and you know, it wasn't looking great for them in the group stages. But Ventus are now going to top 8.
Are they about to Mad Lions us, lose a few games at the start, and then continuous win streak the whole way down?
There's a difference between losing 3 games and losing like 8 games. You know.
Yeah.
There is a difference there.
Also, they're going up against Fnatic Rising now, which looks very, very good coming in off of the groups. And I think having a game like this and having a good performance on the day will give fans of Ventus a lot more faith going into that match, but it is still going to be a difficult competition for them.
Yeah, and you can see the rest of those best of 3s we did touch on at the start of the day, but coming back to some of those, we talk about Fnatic Rising and Ventus Esports, as you said, being heavily Fnatic Rising favored. What other matchups are you looking forward to coming into tomorrow's games?
Spain v Spain. Mad Lions versus Splice Vipers. That's got to be hype.
I'm loving the fact that on both sides of the bracket, we said it at the start of the day and I'll say it at the end as well, you've got Germany versus France, 2 massively large player bases and regions with storied orgs on both sides of the bracket. Neither of these I want to go to. And I'm pretty sure Misfits Premier are still like living off the high they had from yesterday.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things we saw from play-ins was Misfits seeming rather inconsistent. We're not even sure these guys are going to make it through their group, especially considering how hard their group was. They managed to turn that around. Yes, in the best of 1, now is the big test coming into that best of 3. And it's also been mentioned as well, BIG potentially not heavily tested in Group A.
That's true. I think when you saw Group A, you said maybe not the best of competition against them. They certainly got one of the easier groups to move on through. But that being said, they still performed so well in their games. You know, fantastic early games, especially from this team, really skyrocketed them to close out their games very quickly.
But okay, we see the knockouts now. A lot of these teams we didn't necessarily expect to get through the groups, so we can go back to our own predictions here, and I guess maybe some of us were a bit more surprised than others. We see some of those. Everyone getting the Rogue one wrong is the first thing I see.
I just want to say the fact that, you know, Foxtrot guesses Diffuse Kids and is still joint top of the table with you, Ender, is just, it's a little bit troll to me a little bit, but you know, you guys, you know, have the LEC to practice, I suppose, for the big leagues of the EU Masters.
You've seen a lot of guys getting dragged up there by the Faith and Fnatic as well, paying off. I think,
and also being dragged down by the Faith and Rogue.
Yeah, maybe one of us here had a little bit too much faith in Rogue. That's a yikes for me.
Yeah, I think we all expected that, but
I'm glad Ventus saved me somewhat, because I was very close to bottom of the table at this point. But thank you for making it through from the Nordics, guys. Fulfilling some of that Nordics hype finally towards the end of those tiebreakers. But
wait a second. Shouldn't we all have 2 points for BIG?
yes, you should.
We should.
You should all have 2
I
points.
should have 11 right now.
It doesn't actually change anything.
I
'cause
mean,
we all got those
yeah,
points.
we
I
all
want
got
more
it.
points. No.
We'll clean it up. We'll clean it up.
But yes, we will see now, of course. Those are interesting. I think the group stage in general has been hugely hyped. Those tiebreakers as well weren't necessarily what people were expecting. We saw a lot of people predicting WLG actually making it out of that group.
Yeah, I think I personally thought WLG looked a lot stronger. We talked about how they were dominant in the LGL. We talked about their history in terms of like they're their first kind of really, really dominant team coming out from the Greek scene, and a lot of veteran names that you would have like had you watched previous EU Masters been like, oh, I recognize that one. Oh, I've seen him play before, and I think it just didn't come together. And I think that last game really just showed that when push came to shove, they just couldn't do it.
I mean, I think we also saw one analyst up here after that draft say that Ventus was going to take the win. I can't quite remember who it was,
yeah,
but
I can't remember exactly. I think they had glasses and blonde hair, so I think we're good. I think we're good on
My
that.
hair's not blonde. I don't wear glasses. But certainly, guys, that it is it for us today for the tiebreakers. Congratulations to Ventus making it on through. Good luck against Fnatic Rising. But from all of us here at the European Masters and from PaySafeCard, thank you for joining us, and good night.
3000 Selfmade jumps in. Selfmade gets it, and Mad Lions have bitten back. My God, that is absolutely stunning!